He did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It is just coming up to 3 o'clock. Welcome. I'm Nana Akwe, in for Martin Daubney. This is GB News. We are broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
It's not time to admit
maybe you can pay for it.
that Smash the Gangs was nothing more than an election slogan and not a policy.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage tears into Sir Keir Starmer at PMQs over record-breaking small boat arrivals and calls for a national emergency. But have even the Prime Minister's own MPs also had enough? I'll be joined by Labour MP who says that Sir Keir Starmer needs to take control of the borders, and if that means leaving the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, so be it. He was cleared of murdering gangster Chris Carver, but the Met Officer has pulled the trigger and could be sacked. And of course, it is getting hot, hot, hot. Yes, it's the hottest day of the year so far, with temperatures set to climb as high as 30 degrees. Make sure you slather yourselves with suntan lotion.
Britain basks in record temperatures and potentially the hottest April since 1949.
And I'm in Hyde Park, roasting like a gammon joint. Grab your sunnies, get your SPF 50 on because it is boiling hot.
As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories at 3:01. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch questioned whether Sir Keir Starmer was dragging his heels on local inquiries into grooming gangs because he doesn't want Labour cover-ups to be exposed. Ms Badenoch once again called for a national inquiry into the issue at Prime Minister's questions today. Just yesterday, Reform UK committed to launching a national statutory public inquiry into the scandal in its first month of government.
I was the prosecutor that brought the first case. And when that file was brought to my attention, Mr. Speaker, I noticed that one of the defendants had not been prosecuted previously. Far from covering up, I asked for that file so that I could have a look at it. On the back of that, I then changed the entire approach to prosecutions, which was then lauded by the government. We were doing the right thing and brought those prosecutions. So my record was going after where I thought something had gone wrong and putting it right. She stayed silent throughout their years in government, and so did the entire front bench.
Mr. Speaker, he's not the Director of Public Prosecutions anymore. He is the Prime Minister. People want to know what he is going to do now, not talk about what he did years ago.
Elsewhere, the officer cleared of murder after fatally shooting Chris Carver will face a gross misconduct hearing following a review by the police watchdog. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he's deeply disappointed by the IOPC's decision. A firearms officer shot Mr Carver in the head after he tried to ram his way out of a police vehicle stop in Streatham in September 2022. Mr Carver was not armed and the officer was charged with murder and went on trial in October last year, but was cleared after just 3 hours. A helicopter and 6 police cars were involved in stopping the 24-year-old Carver after the Audi he was driving had been linked to a shooting outside a school in Brixton the night before. Mr Carver died in hospital in the early hours of the next day. Serial paedophile Richard Burrows has been jailed for 46 years for numerous sexual offences against young boys. The 81-year-old former boarding school housemaster and scout leader spent 27 years on the run in Thailand before he was arrested at Heathrow Airport last year. Before his trial, Burrows admitted 43 offences, including indecent assault of boys, making indecent images of children, possession of indecent images of children, and 4 counts of possession of false identity documents with intent. He denied 54 others, which jurors convicted him of last month. Downing Street says the government wants to deliver net zero in a way that treads lightly on people's lives. That's as Sir Tony Blair dubbed Labour's net zero plans inadequate, warning Sir Keir Starmer that it's doomed to fail. The former Prime Minister claimed the public shouldn't be expected to make financial sacrifices or major lifestyle changes. This comes as the government has remained committed to its 2050 net zero target, despite already climbing down from some of their green agenda policies. Shadow Environment Secretary Victoria Atkins told GB News that Labour's targets are simply impossible.
We have said now we want to look at this policy. Of course, we all want to see a cleaner world. We want to preserve and protect our countryside for future generations. But we have to do so in a way that is A, possible and B, affordable. And what we're very worried about is that the current government's obsession with net zero and setting impossible targets such as 2030, these are simply impossible. And what is more, it risks the wider environmental agenda that we all care about. We care about our trees, our countryside and our water and air quality. But this really threatens the public's support for those efforts.
And US President Donald Trump has urged everyone to be patient when it comes to his economic policy, saying that the contraction in the US economy has nothing to do with his tariffs. Writing on Truth Social, the president said that the economic boom that's set to come will be like no other. The president celebrated the 100th day of his second term with a campaign-style rally in Michigan last night, where he also defended his decision to impose tariffs on countries around the world. Sticking with world affairs, the Ukrainian Prime Minister said a short while ago that Ukraine and the US are working on the final details of the minerals deal, which will be signed off in the near future. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Nana.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has torn into Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions this afternoon as he's called for a national emergency into the Channel crisis.
10,000 young, undocumented males have illegally crossed the English Channel into our country, a 40% increase on this time last year, many coming from cultures that are somewhat alien to ours. They are being housed at a cost of many billions of pounds a year in hotels and increasingly in private rented homes. The effect on communities is one of a sense of deep unfairness, actually bordering on resentment. Is it not time to admit that Smash the Gangs was nothing more than an election slogan and not a policy? And isn't it time to declare a national emergency and to act accordingly?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are passing a borders bill with extensive powers to smash the gangs. These are terrorist-like powers that give powers to the police to intercept where they think the suspects are committing people smuggling, which is a vile trade. We must take back control of our borders after the last government lost control.
And now it seems even Sir Keir Starmer's own MPs are turning on him as backbenchers urge the Prime Minister to consider leaving the European Convention of Human Rights, that is the ECHR, to get a grip of the Channel crossings. But first, let's speak to GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and also GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. All right, Catherine, let's start with what was said at PMQs.
Yes, well, it's not very often that Nigel Farage gets a question, but luckily for him, with the local elections tomorrow, he did today. And I thought it was quite a bad-tempered exchange. I really felt that the sort of temperature changed. The Prime Minister is very used to responding to Kemi Badenoch. He sort of got the measure of her, but not so much Nigel Farage. And I felt that the Prime Minister really seemed a bit rattled to me in that his response was very cross and also very, very rushed. He got so many words out very, 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 very quickly. And I think it was difficult for him, but worth saying too, Kemi Badenoch, you might have thought that net zero would be the big topic in Prime Minister's questions today. Not a bit of it. Kemi Badenoch chose to talk entirely about the grooming gangs. I think we can have a little look at some of what she had to say.
Chaos and cover-ups with Labour councils. When will he show leadership and do the right thing?
The right thing to do is to invest in our criminal justice system so we can bring people to justice. They've absolutely collapsed the criminal justice system. Their record was abysmal. They should hang their heads in shame.
She also said, was the Prime Minister dragging his heels because of what might be uncovered in local councils? And I'm told that the reason that Kemi Badenoch decided to go on this is because, of course, we know that the grooming gangs have operated often in Labour-controlled areas, not just Labour-controlled areas, of course, I should say.
Yeah, it was a very interesting exchange. Nigel Farage, Nigel Nelson, got you Nigel Farage.
Yes,
You've changed.
That's changed my politics rather.
Yes, what did you make of that?
Well, I mean, I think that Catherine's right, that certainly Keir Starmer seemed to be a bit bad-tempered, I thought, towards Nigel Farage. What was interesting about the question was that Nigel Farage is calling for a state of emergency, and what begs the question is, to do what? At the moment that you've got various things in place, now Nigel turned around and had a go at smashing the gangs as purely an election slogan. But it is happening, it's happening slowly, we're not going to see results, we probably won't see proper results for several years. If you turn the whole thing into an emergency, what do you do? What can you do more than you're doing? And of course, none of that came out at PMQs today.
Well, look, isn't it that if something is declared a state of emergency, there are other procedures that can be followed more quickly, or you can do things more rapidly, or you can use it as an excuse to then maybe kibosh some of the rules that make it difficult for you to deport people.
But I don't know which rules. I mean, we still have the same problem. I mean, if, say, for instance, an Afghan comes across on a boat, we want to send him back to Afghanistan, that is really difficult. The chances are that they would face death or torture if they got there. So the rules are still in place to stop things like that happening. So the question comes down to what kind of emergency?
Well, the emergency would be giving you more ability to leave the ECHR, and a lot of his own MPs now, Sir Keir Starmer's own MPs, are now discussing it, which was not really seen as something they would have entertained before.
Well, I mean, the ECHR, I think there probably does need to be some reform, especially of the family clauses within it. But that's a different thing. That is not something you can do as an emergency. You can't just suddenly...
Well, why not?
Well, suddenly pull out of the ECHR. We'd then be pulling out of international law.
Well, when you're in a state of emergency, sometimes you need to pull out of international law. This is one step forward for him if he does that, to declare a state of emergency and acknowledging the severity of the situation.
I was thinking more if we were doing something as an emergency thing, like turning back the boats back to France,
well,
yes, but it's already been shown that can't be done unless you're prepared to drown people in the English Channel, which is really difficult.
It's probably not difficult to drown people in the English Channel, but you probably wouldn't want to.
Well, you wouldn't. No, it's probably very easy for a destroyer to do that, but no, we wouldn't want to.
No.
Then, of course, you need to get the agreement of France to go and do it. And if you don't get the agreement of France, France could turn around and say, well, hang on, if you were to just dump your migrants as they see it back in Calais, we'll go and pile them on a boat and take them to Norfolk. So there are a whole host of reasons why you can't do it. What I want to hear from Reform is, if we're going to have a state of emergency, what will it achieve?
Well, it would be interesting to hear what they have to say about the issue and whether that means that there's something extra. But it could be something that will allow them to turn back boats or do something that maybe they can bypass certain laws within the ECHR that they wouldn't have normally been able to do under these normal circumstances.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just don't see how any of those things are possible at the moment. This, I think, is the real problem with immigration as a whole. A lot of people are against it. A lot of people want things done, and certainly everybody wants to see the boats stop from crossing the Channel. Every time you look at what you might do, it falls apart. I mean, what Reform talk about is following the Australian system, but it's not comparable to anything that happens here. That there are no international waters between Dover and Calais, so it's very difficult to sort out where a border is. What the Australians did when they were turning boats back, they had 150 miles of international waters and bigger boats, because they were crossing much bigger areas, so less chance of people drowning. And they also had the agreement of Indonesia to take these people back.
Yeah, well, we can, you know, I think there's nothing wrong with trying to work towards a solution that is similar to one that has already succeeded. In fact, I'd say that's probably the most intelligent way of doing it. Right, Nigel, you're with me all afternoon. And Catherine Foster, thank you. Right, landlords. They have branded the government's policy of housing asylum seekers in private properties as immoral. Now, this comes as Serco, working closely alongside the Home Office, are offering property owners guaranteed rent for 5 years if they agree to house asylum seekers. Serco currently manages about 30,000 asylum seekers across 7,000 properties throughout the UK. But is this the right move? Well, joining me now is landlord Jeremy Leith. Is this the right move? What's wrong with them suggesting something that actually has been happening for many years, but actually now calling all landlords, which is the heading of the Serco's website?
Well, it's one of those stories and you hear about and you think, oh, well, that sounds quite a good idea. But when you actually drill down to it and you see what's involved, it looks like no one's really thought this through very well. Because plenty of landlords, A, feel it's a bit immoral, and there's other practical reasons for not doing it.
Right, Nigel, what do you think of this? Because, like, a lot of people might say that actually you are providing a situation where you are dispersing migrants within the communities rather than having them in one space where they can sort of become a congealed mass of people who are probably not happy with things and then cause problems.
Well, I mean, it's a good idea. If people are going to be here, I mean, I think we ought to sort of distinguish between people who are coming across undocumented and people who have a legal right to be here. Obviously, what you don't want is to form ghettos or the pockets that you're talking about. So the idea of dispersing people around the place strikes me as a good idea. The big thing, obviously, is if you don't do this, where do you put them? They've got to go somewhere. Obviously, hotels are really expensive, £8 billion a year. It is cheaper if you can do it. You can do it in private properties.
All right. Well, Jeremy, this is the thing. The idea of the migrants actually being dispersed rather than contained in one sort of area, which then can cause a situation which the locals are not happy with. Surely, and the prospect that the landlords will actually get their rent guaranteed over 5 years, especially with the Renters' Rights Bill coming in, isn't that a good thing?
Well, I can see some people being attracted by it, but money isn't the only driver of persuading landlords to take on certain tenants. They'd rather have, and most of the landlords we deal with, or me, myself, would rather have a good tenant than maximum rent, and sending a wrong signal to other tenants in a building, more wear and tear. I mean, the biggest problem is we're just not building enough houses or flats for people. And there's plenty of people on existing council house waiting lists who are not being housed. So how would they feel, and the communities generally, if other people are given priority?
Well, that is a valid point, and that is probably one of the big problems as well, because some landlords might see this as, oh, wow, this is music to my ears. So what I'm going to do is now get rid of my current tenants who are paying this wonderful rent, who've been doing it for many years, and then take on one of these Serco contracts where I can get almost maybe double what I was getting for 5 years. And if they do trash the place, then it's going to be fixed and paid for. Perfect.
Well, they don't work out. The instances we've seen or heard of or other examples just don't work in practice. You may get a little bit of more money short term, but sometimes these are not enforced properly. At the end of the agreement, you can't get the people out, or maybe more people are living in the property than you anticipate, so there's more wear and tear. So it's lose-lose rather than win-win.
You can't get people out, but if this is a government-backed contract, then you probably could. But I'm wondering the impact of the Renters' Rights Bill. OK, so if that comes into play, well, because obviously you take on one of these contracts and that is coming into play, the only way you're allowed to actually usurp your tenants is if you're selling the property. Will that particular, when it becomes an act, will that have an impact on this particular situation?
Well, we'll put it this way. On the one hand, the government is supposed to be ramping up the housing building targets, 370,000 a year, whatever. But on the other hand, they're not doing really very much to encourage investor landlords to stay in the sector and provide some of this accommodation for them. Because apart from the migrant problem, the population is said to increase rapidly over the next 10 years. I read recently about 6 million more people. And where will most of those people want to be housed? In the private rented sector.
Have you ever taken on one of these sort of contracts?
No.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be tempted, depending on the strings attached and whether it can be properly enforced, what sort of people are there. And I wouldn't feel comfortable about it in view of the other people. There's enough problems with local authorities trying to house the existing people. So taking on a whole new raft of new people would be even worse.
And what kind of effect could this have on the actual rental market in terms of rent prices?
Well, there's almost a two-tier, not almost, there's a two-tier system emerging in that the better properties, rents are going up. For cheaper properties, it's probably level or even going down because people just can't afford to meet some of the rents that are there because a lot of landlords are selling up. So it wouldn't really make a big difference from that point of view.
All right, Jeremy Lee, thank you very much. He is a landlord. 19 minutes after 3 o'clock, a Home Office spokesperson said these arrangements with private rented sector have been in place for years, including under the previous government. We have a statutory duty to support destitute asylum seekers who will not be able to pay for fees such as utilities and council tax. We are restoring order to the asylum system and cutting costs to taxpayers by reducing the number of people we are required to accommodate through a rapid increase in asylum decision-making and the removal of more than 24,000 people with no right to be in the UK. We also reached out to Serco for comment, but have had no response. Coming up, the Met officer cleared of murdering gangster Chris Cabot now faces gross misconduct charges. I'm Nana Akweer on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, I'm Nana Akweer on Martin Daubney's show. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel, 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. Now, the armed Scotland Yard officer who was cleared of murdering violent gangster Chris Cabot now faces a gross misconduct disciplinary over the shooting and could be sacked. The specialist shot dead Chris Kaba in September 2022 after Chris drove at officers in an attempt to smash his way out of a police roadblock. Well, joining me now in the studio is GBNews' security editor, Mark White. Mark, what more can you tell us about this story?
Well, I think the reaction now that's coming in from members of the police service is one of anger. I think there would be a great deal of concern that armed police officers in particular who do this voluntarily, they don't get paid extra for it, and they take on an enormous responsibility in having to carry a firearm. If ever they're forced to use that, make a split-second decision, they could find themselves in the same kind of shape as this officer who, of course, has had to go through the ordeal of a murder trial where he was acquitted by a jury quickly after the conclusion of that particular trial process, but now, of course, finds himself facing a gross misconduct hearing. And the concern is, I think, amongst police forces across the country, is that many armed officers might just feel now it's simply not worth carrying a firearm, knowing that if they have to make that decision, that it could be hanging over them for not just months, but for years, could be potentially career-ending. Even worse, they could lose their liberty as a result of it. Now, we've had some reaction from the Metropolitan Police Federation, from Matt Kane, who is the Secretary-General of the Met Police Federation. He said, police officers should not have their livelihoods or liberty put at risk for performing what unequivocally, as has been found in court of law, is their lawful and appropriate function. And yet, putting this brave officer on trial for murder, as astonishing as that was not enough for the IOPC. Being cleared unanimously by a jury who heard all the evidence was not enough for the IOPC. They have now decided to put him and his family through more torment. And that statement concludes by saying, we will vigorously defend the actions of this officer in any misconduct proceedings. This, as they say, is not accountability. It's not in the public interest. This is not right or fair or just. And I think the Police Federation there really echoing the views of police officers right across the country, and what they see is the mistreatment of this officer for simply doing his job in very difficult and trying circumstances.
Mark White, thank you very much. Right, still here is GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson, and also in the studio is former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Peter, what do you think when you hear this?
The Independent Office of Police Conduct is a largely discredited organisation which isn't independent. And in this situation here, it has bowed to a baying mob. It has acted vindictively, perniciously, and this gross misconduct hearing that NX121 will now face is utterly appalling.
Well, he has been cleared of murder, so why does he now need to go through something else? Surely that should be drawing a line over it. And the other thing is, of course, the judge named him, which was absurd. Why would they do that?
And we won't be doing that.
No.
But NX121's actions that night, when he pulled the trigger and fired that fatal shot, and everything leading up to that, has been examined by a jury in the minutest of detail. The IOPC and the CPS, in their desperation to try and nail a firearms officer for a crime that they hadn't committed, was shown to be abysmal. The jury, not only did they deliver their verdict swiftly and conclusively, they wrote a letter to the judge. And I know somebody who's seen that letter, which the judge would not make public. And in that letter, the jury lambasted the CPS and the IOPC for ever sticking this officer on trial. And now he, his family, everybody who loves him is going to have to go through the ordeal of a gross misconduct hearing. This is not process, this is abuse.
Nigel Nelson, would you Concur with that?
Largely, I'd go along with Peter there. I find it astonishing that if a jury makes a decision and finds someone innocent, that should be the end of it. So where this case started, that either you decide to go for a charge of murder, which is what happened in this case, or you go for a lower charge of gross misconduct, which the IOPC would do. What I find astonishing is you do both. So because the first one falls, the murder charge falls, now he gets charged with gross misconduct, and when all you're going to hear is exactly the same evidence you would have heard at trial. And when you hear that evidence, and where you get other officers who were there who say that if he hadn't taken that shot, these other officers would have done, makes you wonder why you need this second hearing.
Well, Peter, who will protect this officer now, though? Because if there's gross misconduct, and just say for one ridiculous moment that he is found guilty of that, then he's on his own, isn't he?
I'm not even going to go there, but to answer the first part of your question, the Police Federation will defend NX 121 at this police disciplinary hearing robustly, like they did at the trial at the Old Bailey. He will have the best legal minds on his side, and rightfully so. This police discipline hearing, we have heard by the Met, is going to be chaired probably by a chief constable from somewhere else in the country. But once again, I hesitate not to say this is not due process. This is an abuse of process, and it is fundamentally wrong on every level.
What about the judge who named him? Is there any comeback on that judge? Because I know people were saying that they wanted the judge to be named, but where are we with that?
No, and that judge made his decision, and NX 121 stood trial in his real name, something that I'm sure aggrieved many people. But the end of that Old Bailey trial, with every scrap of evidence, every witness being cross-examined, every lead-up to the event, the pulling of the trigger and subsequent events were examined in the minutest of detail and cross-examined. And for this situation to be arrived at today is a stain on this nation and a disgrace to anybody who's played a part in getting us to this point.
All right, thank you very much. Former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, thank you for your thoughts. Of course, Nigel will be staying with me. The director of the Independent Office of Police Conduct, Amanda Rose, said, "This is a decision we've taken based on examining all the evidence. We appreciate that the Home Office is carrying out a review of the legal test for the use of force in misconduct cases. However, we must apply the law as it currently stands." Right, well, 32 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News. There's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock. The Scottish Football Association is to ban transgender women from participating in women's football. Is it time for the English to follow suit? But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. Your top stories this hour. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch questioned whether Sir Keir Starmer was dragging his heels on local inquiries into grooming gangs because he doesn't want Labour cover-ups exposed. Ms Badenoch once again called for a national inquiry into the issue at Prime Minister's questions today. Just yesterday, Reform UK committed to launching a national statutory public inquiry into the scandal in its first month of government. The officer cleared of murder after fatally shooting Chris Cabba will face a gross misconduct hearing following a review by the police watchdog. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he's deeply disappointed by the IOPC's decision. A firearms officer shot Mr Cabba in the head after he tried to ram his way out of a police vehicle stop in Streatham in September 2022. Mr Cabba was not armed and the officer was charged with murder and went on trial in October last year, but was cleared after just 3 hours. A helicopter and 6 police cars were involved in stopping the 24-year-old Cabba after the Audi he was driving had been linked to a shooting outside a school in Brixton the night before. Mr Cabba died in hospital in the early hours of the next day. US President Donald Trump has urged everyone to be patient when it comes to his economic policy, saying that the 0.3% contraction in the US economy had nothing to do with his tariffs. Writing on Truth Social, the president said that the economic boom that will come will be like no other. The president celebrated the 100th day of his second term with a campaign-style rally in Michigan last night, where he also defended his decision to impose tariffs on countries around the world. Sticking with world affairs, the Ukrainian Prime Minister said a short while ago this afternoon that Ukraine and the US are working on the final details of the minerals deal, which will be signed off in the near future. And new footage has been played in court today, which allegedly shows the moment that the Sycamore Gap tree was felled. Prosecutors showed the jury the video during the trial of Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who were accused of illegally chopping it down in September 2023. The two men are charged with 2 counts of criminal damage, charges which they deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3311 and €1.1727. The price of gold is £2,485.23 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,440 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report. Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Expect delays on the A9 at Scrabster due to roadworks. Approach cautiously and allow extra time. In Cheshire West and Chester, a collision on the M6 northbound has 1 lane closed, with conditions expected by 4:43 this afternoon.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, isn't it sending the wrong message to young workers who think that it would be all right to turn up drunk to work, or actually just ring up and say, I'm not coming in today because I'm drunk? That's no way to build a career, is it?
Well, I mean, this ensures that they don't turn up drunk to work because they can stay at home and have a line if they're feeling a bit worse for wear. But I think the point is it incentivizes people who, the reason the company did it was because they can't offer really high wages, so they have to offer any perks they can give. And this was one of them. And I think that if it makes life a bit easier, a bit more fun for young workers, then that's a good thing.
Dom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's terrible. I've run a lot of companies. I've been in a situation where I've not had budget to hire people, and we didn't go to hangover leave. We went to offering things like gym membership, offering people things like therapy, offering positive things at work to be able to get them to enjoy where they work, not hangover leave. I think that's a bit desperate, well, very desperate. And to be honest, if you're running a company and someone wants to work at you because they want hangover leave, they're probably the wrong person to have in your organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Luca, isn't Gen Z supposed to be the generation that doesn't want to get drunk, that they're all for sort of healthy living and having mint tea instead of beer? Oh.
Well, some of us are, not all of us, don't worry. But there you go, all the more reason to do this. It can help with the nighttime economy. It can get people going back into pubs and bars and really boost that element of our economy. And as you say, many people won't want to take it anyway. It's an optional thing. It's not like you have to go out and get drunk every evening if your company has such a policy.
No, but what about having a responsible attitude to work?
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Akwe on GB News. Now, the Scottish FA is updating its gender policy in order to ban transgender women, so biological men, from competing in women's football. From next season, only those born biologically female will be allowed to take part in the competitive matches in the women's game. I mean, really, is it now time for the English FA to follow suit? Of course it is. Joining us now is former referee and FIFA instructor Janie Frampton. Janie, is this a round of applause finally for common sense?
Good afternoon, Nana. Absolutely, of course. The most important thing about sport is you have to protect the integrity. And the integrity of sport is based on fairness. Now, whilst one wants to be fair to trans women, one also has to be fair to women participating in women's sport. And you are never going to convince me that a 6-foot trans woman is in a goalkeeping position is not going to be an advantage to their team, because it absolutely is. And when you're tackled by a really strong trans woman, honestly, that is dangerous.
Well, of course it's dangerous.
Women's football and men's football are completely different. One is strength and stamina, and one is far more technical. Why mix them?
It doesn't even make any sense. We obviously know that there's a problem with this, and that men and women shouldn't be playing football against each other, because when you're younger, up till about the age of 13 or so, they do mix the sexes in the football, and it's because there's not such a biological advantage. But after that, it doesn't happen, and it shouldn't happen, because what happens if there is a serious injury? What
Which
then?
Which is very possible.
Of course.
Which is why, Nana, we have a ruling that says it's mixed football under 13s. We have that for a reason.
Exactly. And I mean, the problem with this is that you were told you were transphobic for ever pointing these things out, but sport is about bodies, and you are putting bodies up against each other. So even in boxing, you'll compare weights, in all sorts of disciplines, you'll ensure that you're matching bodies equally, and it is totally unfair. Did you find some of the women didn't want to play against transgender women?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm still hearing it. I'm still hearing women saying that they're playing against trans women and they find it really difficult. It's not fair. You've got to protect women's sport. And Sharon Davis has been campaigning for years, and she's been right to, and she's been trolled terribly for doing so. But this is not about being anti-trans women. It's about being fair across the board. And if I'm honest, Nana, I get really cross now that my rights as a woman, born biological woman and happy to be one, my rights are often eroded by the minorities that think that they've got a right to erode my rights.
And the thing is, many trans women haven't actually had the operation. So they're, the full tackle is still there. And that's not to be rude, but that's what we're just colloquially calling it. But it's there. And then they're entitled to change in the women's spaces, which again, is not just the actual sport itself. It's then accommodating this, and it's the women who are the ones who are at the brunt of it.
So do you really want trans women with what you politely call their tackle changing in a woman's football changing room? I, as a referee, had to change with men in men's changing rooms as referees for years, and I hated it. And it was always a case of how I could protect my own dignity. I don't want that for other women in an open space of a women's football changing room.
It's also a little bit unfair as well, because I know many trans women, and they are lovely people, OK? And one woman who did my trans woman who got me my little blonde wig, and she was lovely, right? And she said that she wouldn't dream of wanting to be in the space and change in front of women. And again, she was saying that I don't really like all of this, because it then makes us kind of vulnerable, because people are thinking, and most people who are trans don't want attention drawn to themselves. They respect female spaces. This is some form of political lobbying coming from something other than people who are genuinely trans, I think.
And you're absolutely right, but it's the same as any minority within a space. I was a minority as a woman referee in a very male-dominated environment, and that was tough. But the one thing I didn't want to do was to bring attention to myself. I wanted to be considered only as a referee, not as a woman referee. So it's very similar, it's just different spaces.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, stay there, because I'm going to have a brief chat with Nigel Nelson. Now, Nigel, you hear this. You were on my show. Nigel was on my show. One of the first shows that we did, telling me that a woman can have a penis. Have you come round to realising that they can't yet?
No, I haven't, in fact.
Oh, come on.
What the Supreme Court has done has clarified that only a biological woman is a woman under the Human Rights Act. We still have a situation in this country where officially a woman can have a penis by getting a gender recognition certificate, and that still stands. So we have this rather odd situation where we have a legal judgment on one side and what you can do officially and, in a sense, legally on the other. When it comes to women's sport, I think that the Supreme Court judgment was fairly clear. In women's sport, there's no obligation to exclude trans women from women's sport, but they can do so if they wish.
Let's get Jamie's reaction to that. Did you hear that, Jamie? A woman can apparently have a penis just because in law, if they have a gender recognition certificate and call themselves one, that's... I mean, I think it's nonsense, but what do you think? What do you make of what Nigel's saying?
I'm sorry, I'm with you. It's nonsense. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. And I want trans women to be absolutely comfortable with who they are. I really do. But please, please, do not erode the rights of women in favour of trans women. And I cannot imagine a biological woman now can have a penis. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's rubbish. A woman cannot have a penis. Jamie Frampton, thank you very much. Jamie Frampton, OBE. She's a former referee and FIFA instructor. Well, it's just gone 45 minutes after 3 o'clock. So if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hi there, if you've got plans to head south for some sunshine, well, you will find some in Spain where it will be a mix of sunny spells and showers, but it's very blustery still across Greece and into Cyprus, some thunderstorms for Cyprus, although becoming less windy for the Greek islands compared with the last few days. Italy's looking very nice indeed, and Spain, Portugal, less wet compared with the last couple of days. Just a mix of sunny spells and showers, most places seeing decent sunny spells into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News on this beautiful sunny day across the UK. And it's going to continue to feel hot during the rest of the day. Showers, though, are likely to turn up across the far north of the country. Northern and northwest Scotland already seeing the cloud build. Odd shower here for the rest of the afternoon, but some more prolonged showery rain pushing into the Outer Hebrides and the Northern Isles by evening. Ahead of that, we keep the clear skies and keep the warmth as well. And in some places, it will be a remarkably warm night. Temperatures dipping to the mid-teens in some urban areas and possibly even higher than that across parts of coastal northwest Wales. There will be some colder spots first thing, particularly sheltered parts of central England into northern England, but there will be also some very mild areas overnight. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, a very different start to the day on the first day of May with a lot more cloud, areas of showery rain moving south and some heavy downpours developing in places. England and Wales, meanwhile, once again, sunny skies and temperatures very quickly rising through the morning. It's going to be the hottest day of the week and temperatures are expected to widely reach the mid to high 20s. But a very different story for Scotland and Northern Ireland as this area of cloud and showers pushes south. Could be a thunderstorm for the far south of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. Also could be a thunderstorm developing across central parts of England and Wales as the heat builds here. Highs of 29 Celsius expected. But behind the weather front across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's going to feel much cooler compared with recent days. And that air is filtering its way southwards, albeit slowly, so it's another very warm day in the south and southeast on Friday before temperatures get back towards average for Saturday, Sunday and Bank Holiday Monday, albeit with still some fine weather.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Aquina. This is GB News. Right, it's getting hot in here. The country is experiencing a heat wave as temperatures are set to hit 30 degrees, and it's even thought that it could be the hottest April since 1949. Well, joining us, GB News reporter Steve Bennett from West Kirby Beach and GB News reporter Adam Cherry, who joins us from Hyde Park. Steve, let's start with you. Is it lovely and hot? You feeling the heat?
Yes, Nana, it is absolutely lovely and hot. Been here since 8 a.m. this morning. It's been getting hotter and hotter. We're just above 22 degrees now here in West Kirby, and as you mentioned, it's set to be one of the hottest Aprils since potentially 1949. Not quite a heat wave yet, because the Met Office says that in order for it to be classed as a heat wave, it needs to have 3 consecutive days at high temperatures. So we're not quite there yet. I did speak to some of the locals earlier about how they're enjoying the sun. Here's what they had to say.
Incredibly dry, isn't it? I mean, I can't believe how many times I've had to use the hose on the garden in March and April, which is unheard of, really. I mean, it's great to have the sun, but the garden's suffering a bit.
It's about time. We've had some lousy years in the past years, haven't we? So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, so plenty of activity here today, plenty of dog walkers, plenty of joggers, right from the early hours this morning, like I said, 8 a.m. And all the locals have been stopping, saying how great it is to see the sun. They haven't had the sun for a while, and it really has picked up everybody's spirits. But of course, the warnings are out from St John's Ambulance. They're saying make sure you take your plenty of water on board, you put your sunscreen on, as I have today, factor 50, and make sure you stay in the shade if it is getting too hot for you. Make sure you look after yourself. Don't want to be dehydrated, don't want to get yourself sunstroke. So the update from West Kirby is it's hot, it's going to get hotter tomorrow, potentially maybe some rain at the weekend, typical Britain.
Yeah, we probably want the rain. Thank you very much, Steve Bennett. He's there in West Kirby. Get yourself a hat and some ice cream. Right, let's go off to GB News reporter Adam Cherry. He's there in Hyde Park. Wow, looking great. London is lovely in the sunshine.
Thank you, Nana. Yes, it's looking great here, isn't it? We have retreated to the shade because I've been listening to Steve Bennett, who's got all the top tips for you. It's about 27 degrees here today, and that is a record, well, almost a record. It's the hottest April day in 7 years, so that's since 2018. But like you said in your introduction, Nana, it could be a record-breaking April heat wave here, almost a heat wave. If it gets above 29.4 degrees, that shatters the record set in 1949. But again, like Stephen said, it's not quite a heat wave according to the Met Office, because you need 3 days consecutively in which the heat is above the heat wave threshold, which varies across the UK. But according to the Cherry office, it's hot enough as it is. I've been roasting all day, and like I said, I'm hiding under some trees now, and still have yet to fulfill my quest of getting an ice cream. But I reckon I'm in luck shortly, because I'm just looking over my shoulder and I can see the crowd is dwindling a little bit. So maybe in about an hour or two, I'll have an ice cream for you, and it'll all be happy days.
Yes, Adam Cherry, thank you very much. There he is in Hyde Park enjoying the sunshine. Nigel, do you like the heat?
Sort of, but not too hot. It's okay. It's okay at the moment, but any hotter would be too much.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. We British people, we love to complain about the heat, though. If it's too cold, people complain about the cold.
We moan about the weather, whatever the weather is.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, but it'd be lovely. I mean, I love the fact that it's hot. Now, let's see what we've got. Philip said, joins me, we were talking earlier about trans and obviously that women and men shouldn't be mixing in certain sports. And Philip says women cannot have a penis. It is pretty obvious. Dubbing says women need to stand up and fight for their rights. Trans women are a separate category. Ice Cold Truth says every time there's an accusation of transphobia, just you could counter it by calling people biologically phobic. Biology phobic.
That's a new one on me.
It is a new one on me too, biology phobic. Yes, that is interesting. Well, listen, keep it coming. gbnews.com/your say. Loads more still to come. We're expecting Donald Trump to hold a cabinet meeting in the White House in the next few moments. As ever, we will bring you all that live here from GB News. And don't forget as well, you can stream the show live on YouTube or download the GB News app. It is completely free, and check out all the programmes we have here on the channel. Stay tuned, some big interviews on the way. Nigel Farage will be on at 5. But first, let's get your latest weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News on this beautiful sunny day across the UK. And it's going to continue to feel hot during the rest of the day. Showers, though, are likely to turn up across the far north of the country. Northern and northwest Scotland already seeing the cloud build. Odd shower here for the rest of the afternoon, but some more prolonged showery rain pushing into the Outer Hebrides and the Northern Isles by evening. Ahead of that, we keep the clear skies and keep the warmth as well. And in some places, it will be a remarkably warm night. Temperatures dipping to the mid-teens in some urban areas and possibly even higher than that across parts of coastal northwest Wales. There will be some colder spots first thing, particularly sheltered parts of central England into northern England, but there will be also some very mild areas overnight. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, a very different start to the day on the first day of May, with a lot more cloud, areas of showery rain moving south and some heavy downpours developing in places. England and Wales, meanwhile, once again, sunny skies and temperatures very quickly rising through the morning. It's going to be the hottest day of the week, and temperatures are expected to widely reach the mid to high 20s. But a very different story for Scotland and Northern Ireland as this area of cloud and showers pushes south. Could be a thunderstorm for the far south of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. Also could be a thunderstorm developing across central parts of England and Wales as the heat builds here. Highs of 29 Celsius expected. But behind the weather front across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's going to feel much cooler compared with recent days. And that air is filtering its way southwards, albeit slowly, so it's another very warm day in the south and southeast on Friday before temperatures get back towards average for Saturday, Sunday and Bank Holiday Monday, albeit with still some fine weather.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists face a contraflow on the M74 between junctions 11 and 9, with the southbound on-slip at junction 10 closed. Follow diversions and expect delays. An accident is on the A487 between Llanrhystr and Aberarth. In Cheshire East, there are 20-minute northbound delays on the M6 between junctions 16 and 17. Nottingham's M1 northbound from junction 24 to 26 has up to 1 hour delays. In Hampshire, congestion on the A34 near the A272 and M3 causes 15-minute delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon and welcome. It is 4 o'clock. This is Martin Daubney's show on GB News with me, Nana Aquia, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
It's not time to admit
Maybe you can pay for it.
that Smash the Gangs was nothing more than an election slogan and not a policy.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage tears into Sir Keir Starmer at PMQs over record-breaking small boat arrivals and calls for a national emergency. But have even the Prime Minister's own MPs had enough? I'll be joined by Labour MPs who say that Sir Keir Starmer needs to take control of the borders, and if that means leaving the European Convention of Human Rights, then so be it. And he was cleared of murdering gangster Chris Cabba, but the Met officer that pulled the trigger could still be sacked. And any moment now, we'll be crossing live to the White House, where Donald Trump will be chairing a cabinet meeting that comes as the US economy shrinks by 0.3%. And I absolutely want to hear from you, so send me your views, post your comments at gbnews.com/your say. But now let's get your latest news with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories at 4:01. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch questioned whether Sir Keir Starmer was dragging his heels on local inquiries into grooming gangs because he doesn't want Labour cover-ups exposed. Ms Badenoch once again called for a national inquiry into the issue at Prime Minister's questions today. Just yesterday, Reform UK committed to launching a national statutory public inquiry into the scandal in its first month of government.
I was the prosecutor that brought the first case. And when that file was brought to my attention, Mr. Speaker, I noticed that one of the defendants had not been prosecuted previously. Far from covering up, I asked for that file so that I could have a look at it. On the back of that, I then changed the entire approach to prosecutions, which was then lauded by the government. We were doing the right thing and brought those prosecutions. So my record was going after where I thought something had gone wrong and putting it right. She stayed silent throughout their years in government, and so did the entire front bench.
Mr. Speaker, he's not the Director of Public Prosecutions anymore. He is the Prime Minister. People want to know what he is going to do now, not talk about what he did years ago.
Elsewhere today, the officer cleared of murder after fatally shooting Chris Cabba will face a gross misconduct hearing following a review by the police watchdog. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he's deeply disappointed by the IOPC's decision. A firearms officer shot Mr Cabba in the head after he tried to ram his way out of a police vehicle stop in Streatham in September 2022. Mr Cabba was not armed and the officer was charged with murder and went on trial in October last year, but was cleared after just 3 hours. A helicopter and 6 police cars were involved in stopping 24-year-old Cabba after the Audi he was driving had been linked to a shooting outside a school in Brixton the night before. Mr. Cabba died in hospital in the early hours of the next day. US President Donald Trump has urged everyone to be patient when it comes to his economic policy, saying that the 0.3% contraction in the US economy has nothing to do with his tariffs. Writing on Truth Social, the president said that the economic boom that will come will be like no other. The president celebrated the 100th day of his second term with a campaign-style rally in Michigan last night, where he also defended his decision to impose tariffs on countries around the world. Sticking with world affairs, the Ukrainian Prime Minister said a short while ago that Ukraine and the US are working on the final details of the minerals deal, which will be signed off shortly. The deal would form an economic partnership between the two countries in a bid to develop Ukraine's raw materials. Serial paedophile Richard Burrows has been jailed for 46 years for numerous sexual offences against young boys. The 81-year-old former boarding school housemaster and scout leader spent 27 years on the run in Thailand before he was arrested at Heathrow Airport last year. Before his trial, Burrows admitted 43 offences, including indecent assault of boys, making indecent images of children, possession of indecent images of children, and 4 counts of possession of false identity documents with intent. He denied 54 others, which jurors convicted him of last month. Downing Street says the government wants to deliver net zero in a way that treads lightly on people's lives. That's as Sir Tony Blair dubbed Labour's net zero plans as inadequate, warning Sir Keir Starmer that it's doomed to fail. The former Prime Minister claimed that the public shouldn't be expected to make financial sacrifices or major lifestyle changes. That comes as the government has remained committed to its 2050 net zero target, despite already climbing down from some of their green agenda policies. Shadow Environment Secretary Victoria Atkins told GB News that Labour's targets are simply impossible. And new footage has been played in court today, which allegedly shows the moment that the Sycamore Gap tree was felled. Prosecutors showed the jury the video during the trial of Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who are accused of illegally chopping it down in September 2023. The 2 men are charged with 2 counts of criminal damage, charges which they deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Nana in Westminster.
That's as the US economy shrinks by 0.3%. We will bring you that live event when it happens. In the meantime, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has torn into Sir Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's questions this afternoon as he's called for a national emergency into the Channel crisis.
10,000 young, undocumented males have illegally crossed the English Channel into our country, a 40% increase on this time last year, many coming from cultures that are somewhat alien to ours. They are being housed at a cost of many billions of pounds a year in hotels and increasingly in private rented homes. The effect on communities is one of a sense of deep unfairness, actually bordering on resentment. Is it not time to admit maybe you can pay for it that Smash the Gangs was nothing more than an election slogan and not a policy? And isn't it time to declare a national emergency and to act accordingly? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are passing a borders bill with extensive powers to smash the gangs. These are terrorist-like powers that give powers to the police to intercept where they think the suspects are committing people smuggling, which is a vile trade. We must take back control of our borders after the last government lost control.
And now it seems even Sir Keir Starmer's own MPs turning on him as backbenchers urge the Prime Minister to consider leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, or ECHR, to get a grip on channel crossings. Well, let's speak to GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, also GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Catherine, so this was quite a busy PMQs, but the real problem here, we do seem to have a situation in the channel at the moment with crossings.
Yes, well, Sir Keir Starmer has got a lot of problems, and as was highlighted in PMQs today, the small boats, channel crossings being just one of them, because, of course, he said they would smash the gangs, like Rishi Sunak before him said they would smash the boats. Neither seems to be having any success. stop the boats.
Smash the boats.
Smash the boats.
The whole thing
you know what
altogether.
I mean? Another party in power, another slogan, but still the numbers are up, a record number crossing this year. And without an effective deterrent, of course, Rwanda never got off the ground, but it's difficult to see how this stops. So I thought that, first of all, it was great timing for Nigel Farage to get that question, but also it seemed to me that the PM, it was quite a bad-tempered response, and I thought that Sir Keir Starmer seemed a little bit rattled in responding to that question. Now, Kemi Badenoch, with her 6 questions, didn't go on net zero at all. She focused completely on the grooming gangs, another very tricky issue for the government. Let's have a little look at some of that.
Chaos and cover-ups with Labour councils. When will he show leadership and do the right thing?
The right thing to do is to invest in our criminal justice system so we can bring people to justice. They've absolutely collapsed the criminal justice system. Their record was abysmal. They should hang their heads in shame.
So, I mean, the Prime Minister was very keen to point out that Kemi Badenoch hadn't spoken about this when they were in government, and the Conservatives didn't put into motion any of the recommendations from the J report. But I think this is a very difficult area for the government, because there are growing calls for a statutory public inquiry, national inquiry, where you can force people to give evidence. And I'm told that the reason that Kemi Badenoch went on this is because she wants to highlight the fact that often the areas where these grooming gangs have operated are often, though not always by any means, Labour controlled. So she said, is the government dragging its heels on this because it's politically difficult for some in Labour?
Is it politically difficult for some in Labour, Nigel? Do you think that's why Jess Phillips is not pushing for the national inquiry? I mean, she spoke the other day and she was really digging her heels in and staying with the idea of a local inquiry, even though there are probably 50 locations or more where there is a problem.
I think the problem is, it's a problem of government, that now the government have actually got to do something. And if they now launch another inquiry, bear in mind we had the Alexis J inquiry that ended in 2022. That took 7 years to complete. What they're busy doing is what Keir Starmer was saying at PMQs, is putting in the recommendations from the J report. The key to that is a National Child Protection Agency. This would actually help children sexually abused in any circumstance, whether by grooming gangs, the home, the church, school, whatever it might be. They're working on that. If you launch another national inquiry now, you can hardly carry out with those recommendations while another national inquiry is working.
You know, I really didn't like the way that Keir Starmer spoke to Kemi Badenoch when she went she. I just found it very... I don't know. I just found it a little bit.
They didn't used to do this. That normally, the way the Prime Minister would have done it is to refer to her as the Right Honourable Lady.
Yeah, that's right.
When you say she or he in the Commons, you're actually referring to the Speaker. In the old days, the Speaker would get up and say, "Hang on, I didn't do whatever it is you're accusing me of," and that's why they have the third person there. That tradition seems to have disappeared, which is why you get that. It seems a bit sharp when he was doing that.
It just seemed a little bit rude. It felt a little bit misogynistic, I think.
I think I'm probably going to get attacked for this, but I think there has been a pattern. I personally feel that the way that the Prime Minister speaks to Kemi Badenoch sometimes in PMQs is quite patronising, and he speaks to her in a way that I don't think he would speak to her if she was a man.
I tend to agree with that. I don't like it. I want to hear them having respectful conversation, but I do find his demeanour towards her, the way in terms of how he speaks, quite patronising and quite rude. But you know, I'd like to see them speak to each other with gravitas and respect. But what can you expect, really? Seriously. Now, what about this situation? The idea of calling for a national emergency. This is something that Nigel Farage talked about with regard to immigration.
Well, yes. And I mean, I think it's fair enough that he said we had stop the boats, now we had smash the gangs. They're just slogans. We need to declare a national emergency. But what would that actually mean? It's all very well for Reform to say if we were in charge, we wouldn't have any of this. How would they actually stop it? Now, turning back the boats in the channel is what, 20 miles wide? This is not comparable to what Australia did 15 years ago in the Pacific Ocean. We're in an entirely different geographical sort of space. And I do think, too, all the calls for leaving the ECHR, and the government have said they're looking at how Article 8 in particular is applied. But why is it that other countries who are in the EU seem to be able to have, first of all, less people going into those countries, and also grant far fewer people the right to stay, grant far fewer people asylum? For example, very liberal, supposedly, countries in Scandinavia are taking a much, much tougher approach, even though they are within the EU and within the ECHR. Perhaps it's partly about how we are applying the rules, and maybe we could be taking a much tougher line.
But isn't there, there's actually a National Emergencies Act, isn't there? And it empowers, I think in America there is one for sure, but I think when you declare a national emergency, it sort of means that you can do things that maybe you wouldn't normally be allowed to do, or you're entitled to some funds or something. But stay with us, because any moment now we are expecting Donald Trump to chair a cabinet meeting that, as the US economy shrinks by 0.3%, he's gone tariff mad. We'll bring that live event when it happens. But in the meantime, Catherine, what can we expect?
Well, we're now on day 101 of Donald Trump. And of course, the first time he was in power, that was a huge shock to the sort of global order. I think this is on an entirely different level. He gave an interview the other day in which he pretty much said that he wasn't just running America, but he was running the world. And it does feel a bit like that, because from the very moment that he was elected back in November, he has dominated the conversation. From the very moment that he came in, what Donald Trump does and says upends the news agenda day after day, and also affects all of us, because the tariffs that he's brought in, 10% on us at the moment, 25% on cars and on steel. We've already seen the damage that's done to our steel industry. That's been a factor in the fact that the government had to step in Scunthorpe.
Interesting, though, Rachel Reeves seems to blame Donald Trump for quite a few things with the economy. He's about to speak. Do you think he's doing a good job, Nigel?
No, I don't.
Really?
And I think you've mentioned the key figure, the fact that the American economy is actually shrinking rather than growing, and that's a sign of the mess that he's getting America in. Let alone if he thinks he's running the rest of the world, that's in a mess too.
What about Rachel Reeves? This is 0.3%. She's losing percentage points.
Well, I mean, a lot of the reason that we're not growing is because we've got to try and deal with the tariffs first. But I mean, Rachel Reeves hasn't actually criticised Donald Trump specifically. We're trying to keep on his good side at the moment.
Well, she did well there when she went to the US and spoke to Scott Bessent and said that the EU trade is more useful to the UK, sort of thing. Well, listen, landlords. Let's talk about landlords. They've branded the government's policy of housing asylum seekers in private properties as immoral. This comes as Serco, which is one of the companies that are working alongside the Home Office, are offering property owners guaranteed rent for 5 years if they agree to house asylum seekers. Let's speak to landlord and property expert Russell Quirk. What's not to love, Russell, if you're a landlord, somebody who has multiple properties, or a big investor? You could get shot of your properties for 5 years, sit back, and then they'll all be brought back to you in pristine condition afterwards.
Well, I guess that's the theory, but we need to ask ourselves why, Nana, that this initiative, so-called, is necessary. And look, landlords might not want to get involved in the political ramifications of this, but frankly, if they do give up their properties in their communities to the government to house more and more asylum seekers, bearing in mind this is the influx by way of just those that come over on boats every year is now topping 40,000 each year. We've already seen 10,000 illegal immigrants, asylum seekers so-called, come to the shores of Britain since January the 1st this year. So we have to ask ourselves, A, why the government doesn't do something about this that would therefore negate the whole need for such initiatives. But my concern, and I think this is reflected by the landlord communities that I know that you've spoken to today, is that they effectively then, as landlords, become complicit in terms of encouraging illegal immigration. Because, of course, if you're someone that, has decided that France, for whatever reason, or Spain, Italy or Greece, by way of the journey that you've made from Syria, Afghanistan or wherever, that those countries are not good enough for you, well, then, it's quite a nice incentive, isn't it? Apart from the 46 quid a week that you get in benefits and, the free NHS care, the dentistry, by the way, that asylum seekers receive free of charge that we in Britain do not. It's quite nice, I guess, to have a nice 3-bed semi in Aylesbury sitting there waiting for you with a kind of golden key on a velvet pillow. But I would urge landlords to just say no, because I think they will become pariahs in their community, Nana, if they do acquiesce to this, because it's I was going to say the beginning of a slippery slope, but of course we're well down that slippery slope, aren't we? So it will kind of add even more lubricant, if you like, to that slippery slope. Landlords really just need to say no.
But surely it is better for them to be within communities where they can be dispersed more evenly, even though I think it's ridiculous. I'd like to see them stop the boats, but some of them are already here now, so you've got to work out what to do, because we're paying for all these legal appeals, and even if they fail the appeal, they seem to be staying in the country. We're still paying benefits to them. It's just absolute craziness. I don't get it. But they're here. The law is as it is. Surely it's better that they are dispersed into different accommodations rather than in big units or centres where they can conglomerate. They can all be in one space and cause havoc around where they are in that area.
Well, I mean, is it? I mean, if they are contained in such places as Wethersfield, albeit the RAF base at Wethersfield, where there are currently 800 asylum seekers, more, by the way, than the entire population of Wethersfield as a village itself, I think, that containment from the point of view of the local community, it is probably somewhat acceptable. But I bet if, Nana, you and I went out with a microphone this afternoon on behalf of GB News and asked hundreds of people in ordinary streets across Britain right now if they would be okay with anonymous asylum seekers that have come from countries where we might not be sure where they come from, because, of course, they're throwing their identity cards, their passports, over the side of those dinghies as they rock up to Dover. If we asked Mr. and Mrs. Average, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, in those streets, Acacia Avenue in Aylesbury, are you okay if the rented property next door to you ends up being inhabited by 3, 4 or 5 so-called Syrian or Afghani asylum seekers? I think you and I know what the answer to that question would be in those streets, and it would be a resounding no, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, of course, people fleeing if they're fleeing for the safety of the UK, no one really has a problem with that, but it is the fact that our Home Office don't appear to be able to have the facility to handle it properly. Russell Quirk, thank you very much. He's a landlord and property expert. Like what a Home Office spokesperson said, we are restoring order to the asylum system and cutting costs to taxpayers by reducing the number of people who are required to accommodate through a rapid increase in asylum decision-making and the removal of more than 24,000 with no right to be in the UK. We've also actually reached out to Serco for comment, but they told us they'll not be making a statement. Right, let's have a quick look at what's happening in the Vatican. There's a mourning mass for Pope Francis 9 days after his death at St. Peter's Basilica. This comes as Donald Trump has joked that he would like to be the Pope when asked by reporters who he would like to see as the new head of the Catholic Church. Coming up, the Met officer cleared of murdering gangster Chris Cooper now faces a gross misconduct charge. And Nana Aquia on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections. And one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, I'm Nana Akwe on GB News. Now, just to remind you that any moment now, we're expecting Donald Trump to chair a cabinet meeting. That is as the US economy shrinks by 0.3%. We'll bring you that live when it happens. But first, the armed Scotland Yard officer who was cleared of murdering violent gangster Chris Cabba now faces a gross misconduct disciplinary over the shooting and could be sacked. Joining us now in the studio is GB News security editor Mark White. Mark, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, there are real concerns, I think, within armed policing across the country that we might see the kind of fallout and effect that we saw originally when this officer was charged with murder and subsequently, or previously, I should say, when other officers have been charged in connection with incidents in which they have opened fire and subsequently someone has lost their lives, where armed officers decide that they no longer want to carry weapons, that the volunteering job that's paid no extra for putting themselves in a potentially precarious position if they are called upon to act in a split second and to open fire. Many officers in the past have decided they no longer want to take on that responsibility, and that is one of the concerns going forward as this officer finds himself now facing a gross misconduct hearing. You remember, of course, and what you're looking at the moment are CCTV pictures of Chris Cabba about a week before he died. This was in a nightclub in London where Chris Cabba is the chief suspect, or was the chief suspect, in the shooting of another man. He was a member of a violent gang in London. He was driving a vehicle that was flagged up to police on their automatic number plate recognition system as being linked to other firearms offences. That's when his vehicle was stopped in Streatham in South London in 2022. And at that point, Chris Cabba behind the wheel of that vehicle, used it effectively as a weapon to try and smash his way out of the police roadblock, reversing into police vehicles and then moving forward again into other police vehicles. It was at that point that this officer opened fire, saying that he believed that his and the lives of his colleagues and the wider public were at threat, and a jury agreed with him. They only took 3 hours in deliberating before coming back with their not guilty verdict. But now, of course, as I say, the Independent Office for Police Complaints, the police watchdog, has decided that they're not content with that jury decision, and they want to bring this gross misconduct hearing against this officer.
It just seems utter madness that this officer should be facing that. And, of course, the reason why people know who he is because of a judge. Do we know what the ruling was, why the judge decided to name him?
Well, the judge decided to name him because there was a sort of challenge, if you like, that was brought forward by certain members of the media who felt that this officer should be named. But of course, the Metropolitan Police, this officer and others that supported him, said that, you know, he was not a convicted felon at that stage, and that, you know, if he was subsequently found not guilty, of course, of which he was, then he would have to go on and still try to continue his career. Well, because he was named, he had to step back from those frontline duties, and we understand that there have been threats that have been made against him and his family in light of that name going into the public realm. So a great deal of concern about that, and that is one of the issues that many firearms officers cited when they stepped back from their firearms duties a year or so ago when this was playing out in the court. So there's no doubt these, you know, this subsequent, or the previous court case and now this subsequent gross misconduct hearing, and then previous similar cases have had a really sort of detrimental effect on armed policing and those who are willing to volunteer for a job that doesn't pay any extra but brings with it an awful lot of responsibility and the potential for those officers, should they make a split-second decision, to find themselves in a lot of bother.
All right, Mark White, thank you very much. Well, we are waiting for Donald Trump, but let's have a chat with my panel, Nigel Nelson. Do you think, do you think this is the right move for them to potentially... Because if he loses his job, this officer, then what? Where's his protection? Who's going to look after him? How's he going to look after his home?
Well, I mean, your point is absolutely right about the name being released, that it makes, whatever happens after this, it makes his career in the police incredibly difficult. What Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is going to do is change the law so the police officers in these circumstances will get anonymity unless they're convicted, which is the right way, right way to actually deal with it. What I find surprising is that if the CPS decides to prosecute for murder and a jury turn around and say the man is innocent, that should be the end of it. Yeah. You expect to go to trial. If you're found not guilty, you expect to walk away completely free.
So why is it that now he's facing a disciplinary?
Well, what the IOPC say is that when it comes to gross misconduct cases, there is a lower test than it would be if you were going to court, and they're arguing that as the law stands at the moment, that that the gross misconduct allegation meets that test. Frankly, given the fact that the police themselves kept saying no, this is not necessary, let's leave things as they are. They implored them not to go ahead. I think really they should have listened. If they are the independent body they claim to be, there's no reason why. A bit of compassion here. This man's been found not guilty. I don't see where a gross misconduct charge goes on the basis all the evidence has been heard, and so they should have left well alone.
Are they a quango?
Yes, they are. Yes,
another one of these unelected bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I think
extraordinary amount of power.
In fairness to them, you do need an independent office of police conduct.
Well,
I mean, when police do behave badly, that they've got to be hauled over the coals by somebody, and I think that the IOPC is the right body to go and do that. I just think they've acted wrongly in this case.
When people are behaving badly, he wasn't behaving badly.
No, that's my point. Yeah,
not guilty.
Yeah.
So why are they doing this?
Well, that's why I think that they shouldn't be doing it in this case. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't exist. I think that it's important.
Well, if they're going to do things like this, then it does. Well, they've got to conduct themselves correctly, and anybody with half a brain can work out that this doesn't make any sense.
But you'd have to replace them with something else. I mean, I think that police must be held to account for what is happening.
Yeah. Catherine Forster, this whole Chris Carbo case, and now an officer potentially losing his job. What are the other political parties speaking up about this at all? Is anyone saying anything?
I'm afraid to say I have been totally immersed in Donald Trump world because we're waiting for him to appear.
Well, I didn't catch you off guard.
And I have been totally immersed in that.
I can help you there because I know that Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, he's absolutely against this.
Yeah, he was actually on yesterday, and we should have got him on, actually. That would have been good. But listen, there's lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including we will be crossing live to the White House, where Donald Trump is expected to chair a cabinet meeting at any moment now. But first, I think we could possibly squeeze in some news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. Your top stories this hour. Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch questioned whether Sir Keir Starmer was dragging his heels on local inquiries into the grooming gangs because he doesn't want Labour cover-ups exposed. Ms Badenoch once again called for a national inquiry into the issue at Prime Minister's Questions today. Just yesterday, Reform UK committed to launching a national statutory public inquiry into the scandal in its first month of government. The officer cleared of murder after fatally shooting Chris Cabba will face a gross misconduct hearing following a review by the police watchdog. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says he's deeply disappointed by the IOPC's decision. A firearms officer shot Mr Cabba in the head after he tried to ram his way out of a police vehicle stop in Streatham in September 2022. Mr Cabba was not armed and the officer was charged with murder and went on trial in October last year, but was cleared after just 3 hours. A helicopter and 6 police cars were involved in stopping 24-year-old Cabba after the Audi he was driving had been linked to a shooting outside a school in Brixton the night before. Mr Cabba died in hospital in the early hours of the next day. US President Donald Trump has urged everyone to be patient when it comes to his economic policy, saying that the 0.3% contraction in the US economy has nothing to do with his tariffs. Writing on Truth Social, the president said that the economic boom that will come will be like no other. The president celebrated the 100th day of his second term with a campaign-style rally in Michigan last night, where he also defended his decision to impose tariffs on countries around the world. Sticking with world affairs, the Ukrainian Prime Minister said a short while ago that Ukraine and the US are working on the final details of the minerals deal, which will be signed off shortly. The deal would form an economic partnership between the two countries in a bid to develop Ukraine's raw materials. And new footage has been played in court today, which allegedly shows the moment that the Sycamore Gap tree was felled. Prosecutors showed the jury the video during the trial of Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers, who are accused of illegally chopping it down in September 2023. The two men are charged with 2 counts of criminal damage, charges which they deny. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3311 and €1.1727. The price of gold is £2,485.23 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,440 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Katie. Just a moment, we'll be hearing from Donald Trump. Should we cross live to the White House? Donald Trump is holding a cabinet meeting.
Organizations, and we're expelling these monsters from our country rapidly and working with the Department of Justice. Pam, you're doing fantastic. Your people are amazing. We're having some judge problems that everybody's reading. We're having some judges that don't like, killers, murderers being thrown out of the country. So I don't know what their problem is, but we have little difficulty. We won on the basis of a great border and of getting criminals out of our country. That was why we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won everything. Every metric we won by a lot. It was a massive victory, and we won, I think, largely because of this issue. I put this issue as #1 issue, and they don't want us to do what we're supposed to do, and I don't think that can be. I hope the Supreme Court is going to fully understand what's going on. We have to get the criminals out of our country, and that's the basis under which we won the election. Core GDP, and this is, you probably saw some numbers today, and I have to start off by saying that's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January, this is quarterly numbers, and we came in and I was very against everything that Biden was doing in terms of the economy, destroying our country in so many ways, not only at the border was more obvious, but we took over his mess in so many different ways. Core GDP, removing distortions from imports, inventories, and government spending, was up plus 3% when you add it. We had numbers that, despite what we were handed, we turned them around, and we were getting them really turned around. Gross domestic investment was a whopping 22%. Now, that is a number that people are coming in at numbers. For instance, I just walked in, I heard Samsung is now, because of the tariffs, they're going to build massive facilities in the United States. If we didn't do the tariffs, they wouldn't be doing that. So it takes a little while to get those facilities built, but they're coming in with big numbers. They're all coming in with big numbers. We have more money being spent than at any time in the history of our country. We're up to close to $8 trillion, I think I can say. And really, it's going to be a lot higher than that. Those are just the ones that we know about. 8 trillion. I'm not going to say, but I'm not sure if Biden did $1 trillion for 4 years, 1 trillion. But we're at 8 trillion for 2 months, because let's give us a pass on the first month. We were sort of getting a little bit used to things, right? But after 2 months, we have $8 trillion. There's never been a number like that. And that includes chip companies, car companies, every form of manufacturing, high-tech companies. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So $8 trillion. I can talk about gross domestic product, gross domestic investment. I can talk about a lot of things, but to me, the biggest numbers, the kind of numbers that are, and these people are coming in. Our Secretary of Commerce spent the weekend, he went down to Arizona to see what was happening with the biggest chip company in the world. And he said, Howard, you said, you've never seen anything like it. You want to just describe what you saw?
So they're investing $165 billion in 1,100 acres in Arizona, and they're building the highest tech chip manufacturing, semiconductors, and 4,000 employees. American trade craft, right? Technicians doing every kind of work. The classic foundation of America is building it. They had 14,000 people. They're expecting 40,000 people to build the rest of their plants and to employ 20,000 people for the rest of the time. This is all driven.
You never saw a site like that.
And this is all driven by your tariff policies. No chance this be happening without you.
It's going to be about 40% of the chip market from that one section, and this is the biggest chip maker. They have 99% of the market. They come from Taiwan, and unlike the CHIP Act, which was done by Biden, where they hand everybody billions of dollars, the thing they don't need is money. They got plenty of money. What they need is an incentive to come in, and the tariffs, they're building because of the tariffs. Without the tariffs, and I like to say they're building because of November 5th, the election, and the tariffs, but I'm going to be a little more blunt. They're building because of the tariffs, and November 5th gave them the tariffs. So it's amazing when you look. And These are not companies that go out and say, well, we're going to build, we have to go get our financing. Let's go. Like we would, in New York, everybody would look, you get a building site and then you'd look around for money, you'd look around for financing for 6 months, you'd get your financing. You'd build your building, the market would be good, you'd make money, the market would be bad, it wouldn't be so pretty, you'd have to negotiate, blah, blah, blah. This is different. These people have so much money, they don't know what to do. I asked Howard, did they finance it? No, they do it through cash. And they say that site, and they just started, they just announced it like a month ago, and they've already started. He said, I've never seen a site like it, so big. So, you're talking about essentially a $50 billion building. Now, if you build a warehouse for $50 million, that's a big warehouse, Scott. But a $50 billion building, that's a lot. They're building the electric, they've become a utility. And I'm giving them the right to become. They're going to build their own electric, they're going to build their own electricity, which they need tremendous amounts of electricity. They're going to build it themselves. Anything they have left over, they'll hook that into the grid. But the grid is old and they're unreliable and bad things can happen to grids. I said, if you want, you can hook into the grid, but that's a little bit risky. Or you can build your own electricity and become your own utility. And they, I think in all cases, are deciding to do that. So it's very exciting, and we have a lot of things going. We took over on January 20th. These are quarterly reports. We took over on January 20th. The tariffs haven't kicked in yet. I know that, and I don't want this to happen, but I know that China is doing very poorly right now. I just saw some reports coming out, and I don't want that to happen to China. I like the president a lot, President Xi. I don't want it to happen. I was actually saddened to hear it, but they are getting absolutely hammered in China. And, they're sending boats, the biggest boats in the world, carrying cargo like nobody's ever seen before. These are the biggest boats in the world, biggest cargo ships in the world. And they're coming and they're turning around in the Pacific Ocean. They're doing a big U-turn and going back because they don't want the goods, because 145% tariff. But at a certain point, I hope we're going to make a deal with China. We're talking to China, but their factories are closing all over China because we're not taking their product. We don't want their product unless they're going to be fair with us. And that includes intellectual property and other things. There are a lot of things far beyond just buy, sell. So we'll see what happens. But, I was not, because somebody said, well, were you happy? I said, I am not happy. I want China to do well. I want every country to do well. But they have to treat us fairly also. So with that, I think we're going to maybe go around, and we have some letters where the secretaries and people around the table are making statements about how they're doing and what's happening. And I could start with Pete on the left, because he's my least controversial person at the moment. No, they don't know how good he is. So we'll go around the table and you can hear it. And these are cabinet meetings where they're very open and transparent. And I can guarantee you Biden didn't do this. He didn't do this. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, Mr. President, I think we're controversial because we're over the target. And like so many things, Mr. President, you inherited a demoralized military that couldn't recruit, that was perceived as weak after what happened in Afghanistan and elsewhere because of Joe Biden. And what we have seen since your election and the inauguration has been nothing short of a recruiting renaissance. Decades, it hasn't been decades since we've seen this kind of recruiting in the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force. The men and women of America want to join the United States military led by President Donald Trump.
And the police, by the way.
Absolutely.
And fire. I always mention the fire, but the police and fire, likewise they have waiting lists now, and 6 months ago was a disaster.
Truly historic. We can barely absorb the volume and retention as well. Men and women in the military who don't want to get out now that they have a real commander-in-chief. We're reinforcing standards. We're going to be fit, not fat, in our formations. We welcome back all the folks that were forced out because of the COVID mandate. We've ripped wokeness out of the military, sir, DEI, trans, and it's Fort Benning and Fort Bragg again at the DOD. We're rebuilding the military, sir. The Golden Dome is well underway. F-47, reassuring allies and deterring enemies. We found nearly $6 billion in DOGE savings that we're going to reinvest, including $50 billion from the Biden administration focused on things like climate that have nothing to do with lethality and warfighting. And we will have, as you said, sir, the first $1 trillion budget that we plan to spend wisely on behalf of our warfighters. From day one, sir, we've gotten helped get 100% operational control of the border, coming alongside DHS and CBP. We've got 11,000 troops on the border who now, because of the new national defense area, sir, can help detain illegals at the border and hand them over to CBP. It used to be if you saw camouflage on the border, they could hold binoculars, and that's it. And now we can detain and assist, and we're going to get 100% operational control of that border. Our NATO allies know they have to step up. The Houthis in the Middle East are feeling the weight of American power, and we're deterring communist China. So because of your leadership, sir, I believe we're making the military great again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Howard?
So I have the pleasure of running the Investment Accelerator, which gets to recruit these companies. And you've never seen anything like the companies committed to building in America. Technology companies have committed over $2.5 trillion to build in America based on your tariffs, right? Sovereign countries all backing, the whole Middle East and all these countries backing their sovereign wealth funds. They all want to invest in America, and they're coming in, again, over $3 trillion committed. So just those two topics, you're at $5.5 trillion. And then you've got the whole pharma industry knows it's got to come home because America pays for all the drugs of the world. So the pharmaceuticals have to come home, right? Autos coming home, industrials coming home. So, you know, we've got to train, and your great Secretary of Labor together and Secretary of Education together, we're going to train the workforce to build America. It's unbelievable. We've got so much, as I travel around, the attention on the Trump Gold Card. I mean, it makes me very popular. Last night, I was out to dinner, and someone came up and said, can I buy 10? And how do I buy 10? And I'm like, that's pretty good. It's $50 million for dinner. So, you know, I was paying for my dinner. The External Revenue Service, right? You've got the tariffs and the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars coming in to build the External Revenue Service. That our objective, of course, is to replace the Internal Revenue Service and let those outside countries trading with us, let them pay their fair share to America. And then, of course, you got rid of de minimis. And what happened is these foreign countries were sending in little packages for free and knocking out our mom and pop businesses across America. You put an end to it, and you're going to rebuild the mom and pop and the small business of America. You're their president, and I'm proud to support you.
It's very important. De minimis. It's very. It's a big deal. It's a big scam going on against our country, against really small businesses, and we put an end to it.
Mr. President. So, CAFE standards, we have the fuel economy standards on vehicles that are going to go to 50 miles per gallon. We are going to rewrite those standards, bring it down to something that's far more reasonable. Elon's fine with that, I hope. But it's going to drive down. It's going to drive down the price of a car in America, making cars more affordable for families. Also, Biden had the social cost of credit when we build infrastructure, roads, and bridges, adding 3 to 5% on infrastructure costs. We've gotten rid of the social cost of carbon, driving down the cost to build roads and bridges across the country. We have what is called follow the law. So we have so many states and municipalities that don't follow the law. So whether it's DEI, discriminating against Americans, whether they give illegals driver's license, or their sanctuary cities or states, if you don't follow the law, if you're giving license to illegals, if you're having DEI policies, we're not going to fund your projects. So you got to certify in your state or in your city to get road and bridge money or rail money that you're actually following the law, which includes the executive orders from you, Mr. President. We're cutting back funding. We send research money, Mr. President, to universities to do research on more equitable and sustainable transportation systems. Projects that'll use data and public opinion to inform policy and infrastructure and technology benefiting diverse communities, including women and gender non-conforming people. Just stupid wastes of money. We're pulling that money back from universities. We should do good research if we're doing research in universities. And then one last thing, air traffic control. We don't have enough air traffic controllers. We're about 3,000 short. We're working on an agreement with the union, so when controllers become retirement eligible, We're going to cut a deal to try to get them to stay longer, to stay in the tower. And then we have a plan to put more butts in seats in Oklahoma City, so we can get more students through the academy and into towers as well. It's going to take us a while to do that, to train them up, but we're in the process before our 4 years are done. Well before that, we're going to be at full capacity.
Joe, do you want to tell them about, I think we have to bring it up, we have very obsolete equipment for air traffic controllers. The equipment, the towers have horrible equipment. It's been renovated for years. The money they spent over the last 4 years, this Buttigieg did a horrible job. They wasted billions and billions of dollars hooking up wire equipment to non-wire equipment to satellite equipment, and you're not, a third-grade student would know it doesn't work. You can't work. And they wasted tens of billions of dollars. But we want to put a brand new air traffic control system in, and you might want to describe that, please.
You and I have talked about this. It's a state-of-the-art system, envy of the world. And it's, I mean, listen, our system is safe, but you would have hoped someone would have seen that there's a problem with fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters coming in at DCA. Someone should have seen that before we lost almost 70 lives. It's our job to look and see that we have an aging infrastructure around air traffic control. And so if we don't build a brand new system, there's going to be failures and people will lose their lives. And so we need the help of Congress to help fund this, but it's going to be all brand new. And after you build a brand new system, we have the bedrock and the foundation to actually build on top of it. But no one has done this, Mr. President. There's Band-Aid fixes that have happened over the course of 20 years. You can't have a Band-Aid fix. It doesn't get done. It has to be brand new. The technology, it looks like it's out of a 1980s movie. Old computers, floppy disks. We're using copper wires, not fiber. So there are great solutions we have available that, by the way, everyone's sick of their delayed flights or their canceled flights. We have more capacity in the airspace. And if we build this brand new system, what you'll have is more efficiency in the airspace, and it will be safer. So the economy will be stronger. We can have more flights and less delays. So I appreciate your support on that, Mr. President.
Rebuilding that is very important. You wouldn't have had the helicopter crashing into the plane at 400 feet up when it's supposed to be 200 feet. Right. That would have, bells and whistles would have been gone over, and you would have heard the screaming equipment saying there's a problem coming up in 15 seconds. You got to do something about it right now. And it would have also sent the word right into the helicopter, because I guess you'll be doing the full report on that. But it was pretty obvious what happened. Right. And they were supposed to be at 200 feet. They were at 400 feet, and a terrible thing. And that wouldn't have happened if we had the right equipment. If we had the right equipment, you would have heard bells and whistles going off, and it would have alerted them long before that would have happened. 2 minutes before, they would have had a lot of time. So we have to do this. We have no choice, and we're going to do it, and we're going to be very proud of it. They did old equipment in new equipment, and you can't hook in old equipment to new equipment because it's different. Some is satellite and some is ground. The satellite doesn't work. This man would know that better than anybody, but you can't hook up a satellite system to a ground wired system. And if you do, you're wasting a lot of money. They spent billions. This is Buttigieg. They spent billions and billions of dollars trying to patch a system together. They had hundreds of different contractors, and the contractors were all fighting with each other. We're going to have one great big contractor, like the Great Big Beautiful Bill, which is going along very well. I guess I like Great Big Beautiful, but we're going to have one Great Big Beautiful contractor, whether it's maybe Raytheon, maybe IBM, maybe it could be any one of 4 or 5 different groups, but you put one in charge. They're very big, very powerful monetarily, and they give you a guarantee, and they hook up everything. They do every single thing. So they're responsible for the digging of the ditches and the fiber and every single element. And it's one system that's hooked in. It's not all these hodgepodge systems that don't work together. And it's just a shame. I mean, it's basic construction, but it's complex stuff. And there are a few companies that do it unbelievably well, and we're going to have that. So good job, John. I know that's your big project.
And Mr. President, no one has done it because it is complex. It's hard to do because as you're building a brand new system, you have planes taking off and landing. And so because it's complex, no one has done it. and you've given the directive and the support to make this happen. So
Well,
thank you.
ours is going to be an all-new system. It's going to all hook up. It's going to be the same tower is going to have the same equipment, and all towers all over the country, all over the world actually, mostly, are going to be hooked in together. And when there's a problem, when planes are too close, you will hear a sound that's very ear-shattering, and I've heard it, and it's amazing. I mean, honestly, it's amazing. It's real genius stuff, and we didn't do that. What we did was just waste money. You could have just thrown it right out the window. What they did in this last 4 years was disgraceful. Whether it was the border or this, you can name 100 different things. The worst administration ever. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Secretary. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. And I think one of the things that I want people to understand about the VA is we're part of the national security interests you have, and you've laid the groundwork for that with leadership and making sure that with the Secretary of Defense and myself, we take care of veterans on two ends, one when they come in and one when they served and have earned the benefits that we have. And one of the things is if we're not doing our job on our end, then the recruitment and all goes down on the other end because we have a full spectrum. That's what leadership is about. What we found, and speaking the last 4 years, is we found an administration that wanted to throw money and people at problems, but they didn't want to put leadership in. They just put money and people at it, and we saw wait times stay the same. We saw issues of suicide rates, death by suicide, not change. We saw a homelessness issue barely go down. We saw disability claims skyrocket. When you took place, over 250,000 back dislodged, which we're already bringing down almost 40,000 so far just in the last couple of months. But we've also put back what you, and I was in Congress when this happened, and I was glad to see it. The Mission Act is back front and center at the VA. We're actually doing community care. We're actually giving the veteran the choice that they've earned and they've deserved, whether they can get their VA care inside our facilities or in the community. It's their choice. It's VA care. We're going to give them the highest quality care wherever they want to go. Also, we're expanding out options for treatments and others for those that are new. We're experimenting and looking at new counseling ideas, all new drug techniques that we can help with PTSD, TBI, the things that are affecting our veterans right now. But also, we've taken the leadership to take people and bring them back into work where they're actually communicating. They're back in our offices. We put thousands of people back in. We're processing more claims daily than we were in the last little bit, hit 1 million before has ever happened, and we're actually bringing it down. And I've actually taken our deputy secretary, and he is actually having a strike force now to bring down that disability claim, plus our regular work that we're having done. We've also taken almost $300+ million and taken it out of contracts that we've all heard about so far. We were doing contracts for meeting notes and PowerPoints. And if our folks didn't know how to do meeting notes and PowerPoints, go online and learn yourself. We're not going to pay for it anymore. And we took $360 million and put it back into community care and also our health records management system that we have. We've opened 6 new facilities just in the last little bit so all the media who wants to talk about how we're hurting healthcare, we just opened 6 new facilities. By the way, thank you. You're welcome. As we go from that we've continued. We've also took $11.6 billion in ceiling values of contracts and terminated that we did not need, resulting in significant cost avoidance for the future, but also still maintaining the ability to take care of our patients and also our disability benefits. We've also gotten unity again. We did away with $14 million in DEI spending. We've ended gender dysphoria treatments. We phased that out. All directed the savings from that go to paralyzed veterans and amputees. We've also continued to work toward, as you've, in anti-Semitism and also anti-Christian bias that we saw. The biggest thing, though, Mr. President, I wanted to state is you told me when you said for me to take this job, you said take care of my veterans. Well, we've done something in taking that step forward. The veteran is back first at the VA. The VA is not about itself anymore. We're not a self-feeding animal. It's about a service organization that takes care of one of the best that we have, and that's our veterans. And that way, Mr. President, we're just getting started.
Thank you, Doug. How are you doing with the suicide rates?
We're getting, it's tough, Mr. President. That's something that we're looking at. This is something that we've had $588 million has been spent over the last 4 or 5 years to be prevention, and yet the numbers stayed at 17 or 21, wherever you want to have it. We're now opening that back up, taking in nonprofits. We're bringing in others who have things that are actually looking at. I've worked with Secretary Kennedy and others on the idea of we're opening up the possibility of psychedelic treatment and others that give us an opportunity. We got to research it, make sure it's good, but it's opening up that possibility. And I think, again, veterans are understanding now that we're putting them first. When I go to these hospitals, they're actually coming up saying thanks. We're back in where we need to be, and we're seeing a workforce development. So suicide is going to come down. It's also going to take some transition stuff that your Secretary of Defense has been very helpful on. We've got to transfer them out of the military so they come to us better, but we're working on that.
Thank you. Jameson?
Mr. President, it may come as a surprise, but this has been the busiest 100 days in the history of the
In history. You know, this is the biggest deal ever done. If you sold IBM, ExxonMobil, and 5 other companies together, it's peanuts compared to what we're doing. This is the biggest deal ever done financially in the history of the world. And I think we're doing great. You're going to see some big, big results. Go ahead.
And I'll just say something that Secretary Duffy said in his context, because it's complex, no one has done it. So this is something, a reordering of global trade that hasn't happened since the end of World War II. And it's long overdue because we've seen manufacturing offshore under the old global trading system. When the net result of the global trading system is that all the manufacturing goes to Asia and other places, that's a system you have to replace, and that's what you're doing. They said you wouldn't be able to do global tariffs. We did it. They said everyone would retaliate. No one retaliated outside of China. They said no one would come to negotiate. We're talking to dozens of countries. They said no one would have offers. We have dozens of written offers. We have lots of countries in this week. This is like a break for me to come.
Sure. With all the countries that want to negotiate. They all want to negotiate. They want to make a deal.
Don't zoom in on this. Yeah, this is like a tracker, right? We have all these columns of which countries have come in, when we started negotiations, who gave us an offer, are we in technical talks, and when do we expect to have deals done? Those are some weeks out, but we're working very quickly on this. Thanks to you.
Thank you, James. You're going to have a lot of fun for the next 3 weeks. Michael, do you have anything?
Mr. President, the last 4 years, the world experienced a total lack of zero leadership under Biden, and then we've had 100 days of your leadership with respect, with strength, starting with they'll be all hell to pay if you don't let our people go. Dozens, over 40 Americans have come home under your leadership. Far more terrorists are no longer threatening the homeland under your leadership, pulling all of these agencies together, including the evil individual responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing, and to sit with the 13 Gold Star families. And you showing that follow-up and that justice has been incredible. But pulling this great team together, Mr. President, everything from revitalizing shipyards to cyber to space, that takes this entire team working together. It's an honor to serve you in this administration, and I think the world is far better, far safer for it.
Thank you very much. The Abbey Gate is really important. This was a horrible thing. Destroyed the image, frankly, of the Biden administration. What happened there was a disgrace. It should have never happened, and Pam is working very much on prosecuting that person. We have the person, and he'll do well. I have no doubt about it. Thank you very much, Michael. So the CIA, I don't know, Ratcliffe, I don't know if he's going to say anything. He's probably the one person here that's not allowed to talk about the great job he's done, but go ahead anyway.
Mr. President, as you know, at your direction, the CIA has deployed our unique covert action authorities in various places and continents to successfully advance your national security and foreign policy priorities, to advance peace, to end wars, to take terrorists off the battlefield, and to keep illicit drugs from coming into this country and harming Americans. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to detail your accomplishments in that regard, we can't do so with this crowd. But you and I both know, Mr. President, that you have had a profound positive impact on America's national security posture, and Americans are safer because of your leadership. What I can talk about publicly is, as has been mentioned, the CIA provided the intelligence that led to the apprehension of the Abbey Gate bomber, who is now being prosecuted by our great Attorney General and providing a measure of justice to those 13 families that suffered as a result of that disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal during the last administration. In addition, at your direction, Mr. President, the CIA has negotiated and secured the release of Americans like Mark Fogel and Ksenia Karolina, who have been wrongfully detained, sending the message that you will forget about no Americans that are being held in other places unfairly and unjustly. And finally, Mr. President, the CIA is being restructured at your direction to focus on our core mission and to eliminate the well-documented politicization that has taken place in the intelligence community from bad actors in the past, to focus on our core mission and to make America safe again. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. President.
Good job. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Russell?
We're obviously involved in a number of budget bills that are moving, trying to make sure all of your priorities are reflected in the reconciliation, working on our upcoming budget. Wonderful job by the entire cabinet on that front. Details soon on that front. Sending up rescissions bills to Congress for things that Elon has found. But the regulatory aspect is something we don't talk about enough. And right now you've given us a goal of 10 for 1. We are working right now with all of the agencies to rack up how big of a deregulatory agenda that we can have. When you came into office, you basically stopped $200 billion in costs to American families just by stopping the Biden regulatory agenda. That's about $2,000 per family. We think when we're going to hit these 10 for 1 goals that we could be in the neighborhood of about $900 billion in savings to American families that would be substantially bigger than that $2,000 number. And the point that I would make, in addition to just savings cheaper to the American people, there's an aspect of wisdom when you're enforcing these rules that comes into play. And I'm your regulator for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and we found this small mortgage lender in Chicago. His name is Barry Sterner. He had a firm called Townstone. And CFPB had gone after him because he complained about crime in Chicago, literally the same thing that the Democrat mayor had talked about. And they came after him for 7 years on a redlining disparate impact claim and ruined his life. We overturned that. We apologized on your behalf to that individual, and we basically, without having to go through notice and comment, we ended the policy that set that in motion. And so that's happening across these agencies with how they are using their enforcement discretion, and it will only continue based on the stonewall of backing that you've given us to make these hard calls. I don't think they're actually that hard, but no one's done it to this point, and we were able to go forward and do that because of the backing that you've given us.
So maybe the biggest thing we're working on, maybe bigger than tariffs in a certain sense, is we call it the one big beautiful bill. And that's wielding its way right now through the Senate. And John Thune has been actually amazing. And the Speaker has been so great, Congress. Mike Johnson has been really two guys that they get along great, and it's just been a beautiful, unified attack, really, because we have to attack because the Democrats are trying to stop it at every turn. It would mean a 58% tax hike if they were successful, and lots of other bad things beyond the tax hike. But with us, it'll be the biggest tax cut in American history. How are we doing with the bill?
We're doing great. We're day in, day out, hour by hour negotiations to make sure your stuff is in there and to make sure we have the border resources, the defense resources, and to save the American people some tax money and make sure all those tax cuts that you ran on are in there that help get people back into the workforce. And, I think we're making a ton of progress.
I think we're doing well. Like I said, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, and it would be the biggest tax increase if the Democrats are successful. They're the only people I've ever seen running for office where they want to increase taxes, but this would be a 58, maybe a 60% tax increase, unsustainable for the American people. Thank you very much. Great job. Susie, the most powerful woman in the world. I agree with that. I agree.
I'll be brief so you can hear from these amazing people. Congratulations to everyone on 100 days. That's been it's unparalleled in my memory and best I can tell ever. But it hasn't been busy for busy's sake. The president's promises made to the American people have been kept time and time and time again. You all have been out there spreading the word with community groups and states and media. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and let's work hard for the next 100 and have equally as much success then. Thank you.
And you've done a great job, Susie. I think everybody agrees.
Yes.
Yeah. disagrees, please. Please raise your hand if you have the courage to do so. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Thank you. And you made it very clear that you wanted to put America first. And also from day one, you wanted to make housing affordable again, because we do have a housing affordability crisis in our country. And so at HUD, we've been cutting all the red tape and bureaucracy as it pertains to housing affordability and unleashing creativity of our builders and developers around our country and restoring local control. We took down the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, as you know, which was a zoning tax from Washington. So no longer will Washington be picking winners and losers, but localities and elected officials in different states and cities will have that flexibility. Also, you alluded to securing the border, and such a great job has been done with all of our partners at the table. And at HUD, we want to make sure that the resources that we have now, which is American taxpayer dollars, in the Biden administration, they prioritize illegal aliens over the American people. And so we signed an MOU with Secretary Noem at DHS to make sure that HUD-funded housing only goes to American citizens, and no longer will it go to illegal aliens coming across our border. We have about 9 million people living in subsidized housing in our country. 59% of illegal alien families use some sort of welfare program, costing us $42 billion a year. And so we have prioritized American and American people only to live in HUD-funded housing. And also to make housing affordable, we also signed a partnership with Secretary Burgum at DOI to use underutilized federal lands, as you campaigned on and promised, to identify those lands to build affordable housing in our country so that people can realize the American dream. We also restored biological truth, as you did in sports. We have the equal access rule at HUD, which we took that rule down to ensure that at women's shelters, that those that enter those shelters would be of the same sex, and that we would protect the ladies of our country. No longer will those that identify as women but are not women be able to enter our shelter, so that we can protect the ladies that we serve. Along with our DOGE task force, we identified over $2 billion in savings. At HUD, $260 million at HUD were just in contracts, $4 million were DEI. And so we took those contracts down and de-obligated and sent back $1.9 billion back to the Treasury for the American people. Again, we want to be good stewards over the American taxpayer dollars. And so, Mr. President, thank you for your leadership in this. And we have a tremendous team at HUD, and I'm so grateful to be part of this team around this table to take care of the American people. And I consider it a great honor and humble to do so.
Good job.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Look.
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's heard, but the price of eggs is down. I know it's news. Listen, sir, today on, as we celebrate the 100th day, I think that it's just such a joy and an honor to continue to do this work, so thank you for that. We have been obviously very focused on the cost of groceries, specifically eggs led the way, as you have so eloquently discussed over the last few months, and we're holding tight on a very significant decrease, which is great. And investing where we need to there. As I mentioned before the press came in, we have had a massive issue with Mexico on water, getting water to our farmers along the border for decades. When I worked in Texas 25 years ago, we were fighting with the Mexican government over the water then. You got involved about 2 weeks ago. That evening, I started conversations, and as of just a few days ago, thanks to Secretary Rubio's great deputy secretary and I, have been negotiating, and we hit the best deal, I believe, in history on behalf of our farmers, and thanks to your leadership and your strength on that. And that's a really big deal long term for those farmers. And in the southern part of the country. On the energy side, I know we've got Secretary Burgum and his partner Secretary Wright, but we often forget that agriculture has a major piece of the energy dominance agenda, not just timber, not just minerals, but biofuels. So we continue to support that great leadership coming from those agencies and doing hopefully our part as well, and they've been incredible in that. Our farmers have been hurting under the Joe Biden administration. There was a 30% increase in the cost of input, so the cost of doing business for these farmers over those 4 years. When we left the White House the first time 4 years ago, we had a $0 trade deficit with our agriculture products. After 4 years of Biden, that hit $50 billion because they just didn't make an effort. And so obviously that's $50 billion less dollars at a time of very thin profitability for our agriculture community. So the Congress passed because the last administration didn't get a farm bill done either, the farmers were hurting there. So Congress stepped in. I say all that and basically said $10 billion to move out. USDA, fastest in history, that money went out to those farmers that couldn't make plant their crops. And so I'm really proud of that, and you'll hear a lot of that from the farmers today, that this USDA is moving more quickly than any ever before. And we're not organizing money based on the color of skin and other ways, which was how the last administration was moving out. We have canceled $6 billion in contracts thanks to our great friend Elon Musk and his Doge team. A lot of those were DEI, gender, studying transgender mice. Who knew? The racism in pest management. We've canceled all of it. We're going through a major restructuring. USDA is one of the biggest agencies. It's sort of a catch-all, and we're really downsizing and aligning around putting farmers first, which is really important. A big part of USDA though is food stamps. It is perhaps one of the largest, if not the largest, welfare program, and it's a supplemental nutrition program. Secretary Kennedy and I have been working very closely. We were in Texas yesterday talking about nutrition and agriculture. You can't make America healthy again without your farmers and your ranchers as your partner. So ensuring that our food stamp program and those at the bottom end of the socioeconomic ladder really have access to nutritious foods as we're facing an obesity crisis and a chronic disease crisis, which I'm sure Secretary Kennedy will touch on. And the final thing I'll say is this morning, Secretary Noem and I together, and I brought a picture because I think this is important and it goes to why we're here. This is a South Dakota ranching family named the Mods. They are a fifth generation ranching family. Charles Mod, in his 30s, bought the ranch from his granddad, I'm going to show the press, when he was 17 years old. Those beautiful children, Lyle and Kennedy, his wife Heather. Under the Biden administration, they had, of their several hundred-acre operation, they used about 20 acres and had a fence that had been there since 1910 when their family took over the ranching operation. There had never been really any problem that had been brought to their attention. Perhaps there was a minor dispute over, again, 20 acres. This family was indicted, prosecuted, threatened with jail time, told to find guardians for their children over a fence line dispute that the Biden DOJ pushed forward. So this morning, on the steps of the U.S. Department of Agriculture with Secretary Noem, who was their governor, as the governor of South Dakota, which is where these great people are from, all criminal charges were dropped, and really appreciate the Department of Justice. It was a really big day as we sent the signal that the over-criminalization and using government, and you know this better than anyone because you were in the crosshairs for so long, that those days are over and the regulation through prosecution is no more. And so this family is one of many that we'll now be talking to ensure that never happens again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Scott.
Sir, it's been a momentous 100 days with you at the helm, and I view this 100 days as setting the table for peace deals, trade deals, tax deals. So the next 100 days will be harvesting. You've created negotiating leverage and leadership that are going to yield remarkable results. Energy costs have plummeted. Mortgage rates are down, food costs are moving lower, and American families are finding their financial footing again. I had a group in today. America, under your leadership, is on the verge of becoming an AI superpower. that our economy had become barbelled. We had high tech and finance on one side, natural resources led by energy, which the previous administration tried to kill, on the other, and you're filling in between with precision manufacturing that we're going to be bringing back through good trade policies, good tax policies. Under the Doge at Treasury and the IRS, cost, tech support, and efficiency have increased. We have the IRS revenues are up, and thanks to the young man sent over by Doge, the IT update that began in 1990, which was begun before he was born, is going to be finished during your term. So trade, you couldn't make it up, trade, taxes, and deregulation, the one big beautiful bill under your leadership. Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have done a great job, but they have you as the closer on their members. And I'll just close by saying economic security is national security is economic security, and it's never been better. We're rebuilding it, and as I said last week at the IMF and World Bank conference, America first does not mean America alone. Under President Trump, it means leadership.
Well said.
Thank you. Busy enough? He's doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you, and thanks to the cabinet. So at the risk of insulting everybody else at the table, I believe that I am the youngest member sitting at the table. And, it occurred to me that from the time that I was born to the time that Donald J. Trump was inaugurated just a few months ago, we went from, again, 40 years, we went from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which we depend on the People's Republic of China to make the things that we need. We went from the proudest military in the world to one in which we failed to meet our recruiting goals. And we went from one in which bipartisan border policy was the consensus of both Democrats and Republicans to one in which we allowed 20 million people to run roughshod illegally over the countryside, causing crime, causing a stress on the welfare system. And again, that happened over the lifetime of the youngest member of the cabinet. And what has happened in 100 days is that we've started to reverse every single one of those negative trends. And I think what it shows to me is that the president, and you sit in the Oval Office and you see these portraits of presidents past, and let's be honest, most of them have been placeholders. They've been people who have allowed their staff to sign executive orders with an auto pen instead of men of action. And the reason the media attacks this administration as chaotic is because the president is solving the problems the American people set about to solve. He's actually doing the things that he promised that he would do. And Mr. President, it's been an honor to be part of it for the past 100 days. And let me just make one other observation because it's interesting. I've seen the data, I've monitored it, I've looked at it, but the most underreported fact of the first 100 days is that we came in with a massive recruitment shortfall. And in 100 days of Secretary Hegseth and President Trump's leadership, we now have people breaking down the doors to join our military. To the media assembled here, it's a really interesting question. Why has that happened? Completely aside from the fact that I think it's a good thing or I think that President Trump deserves political credit for it, why did we go from a military where people didn't want to serve to now all of a sudden they do want to serve? That's a story you guys should cover, but compared to that, how much time have you instead focused on the fact that we deported an MS-13 gang member with a valid deportation order? And why is it that the press is so focused on the fake BS rather than what's really going on in the country? I think that what we've shown, sir, is that you can do a lot. You can do a lot in 100 days, but you've also unfortunately revealed that too much of the American media hasn't learned the lessons of the past 40 years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Pam?
President, your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country, ever. Ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you. Your directive to me was very simple: make America safe. And despite that, we've still been defending over 200 civil lawsuits filed against you. on top of everything else, I think I'm representing every one of you in this room in some capacity. And no, you will not be arrested by the U.S. Marshals. Over 200 lawsuits, over 50 injunctions, and now we've got multiple cases in front of the Supreme Court, and we will succeed, and we are doing great in front of the Supreme Court, President, and we'll continue on with that. I was at DEA yesterday, and they said to me, you, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents. And as a result of, since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead. And no longer because of you, what you've done. ATF, since you've been in office, President, along with DOJ agencies, seized 14,500 guns off the streets. Why aren't people reporting that? 651,000 rounds of ammo. That's up 151% from 2024. That's keeping America safe. We've rescinded death penalty. We are now seeking the death penalty on cases. I'm signing death warrants. We are going after terrorism. We are going after arsonists. Whether you're burning Teslas, we've arrested 9 people so far in 7 jurisdictions, no negotiations, 20 years in prison, or you're burning down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. We will be there to protect you. And I've been talking to Governor Shapiro, and he greatly appreciated you reaching out as well. ISIS terrorist, we got one in New York, right around the corner. We got an ISIS terrorist in New York. We have an October 7th task force. We just broke up a huge human trafficking ring by the Sinaloa cartel. 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine on our streets. Ton of fentanyl, 20,000 Molly pills. Those are the drug of choice among at clubs and bars for young kids. They were fake, but you know what they had in them? Fentanyl. That's 20,000 lives saved because of you, right there. We brought back 29 cartel members from Mexico at your direction, and one killed the Kiki Camareno, a DEA agent, in 1985, and many of us got to talk to his widow and his son, who is now a judge. And they started crying. They have tried to get that guy back forever. And thanks to so many of you in this room working together, they have justice. They were crying on the phone because of what you did, President Trump. Thank you. We're going after anti-Semitism. We're unleashing everything you told us. No more DEI, no more weaponization. We have rescinded, as I said, 200 policies. And I could go on all day long, but we are doing everything in our power to keep America safe at your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
You're really doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Okay. So that is Donald Trump's cabinet meeting. It's we're showing you that live. Donald Trump speaking from the White House. And if you want to keep up to date with that meeting, you can scan the QR code on your screen now, or head to GBN2 on YouTube, where we're showing that as it's happening. But now let's bring in GB News political editor Christopher Hope, who's been speaking to leaders in the build-up to the local elections. Tell us more, Chris.
That's right, Nigel. That's right, Nigel. That's right, Nana. But that's a clue who I'm speaking to. Nigel Farage. I'm talking to him very shortly. We'll share the interview shortly. We spoke this week already to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to Sir Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader. Tonight, in an interview I've done with Kemi Badenoch, and here's our interview with Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK. Nigel Farage, thank you for joining us today on GB News. What would a win in the Runcorn by-election mean?
It'd be huge. I mean, this is Labour's 16th safest seat in the country. They got 22,000 votes last time round. We just came second with 7,000 votes. So think about the numbers. They're enormous. It's difficult to really believe how quickly support for this Labour Party has just melted away. Two things I would identify very strongly that I've seen. One, the winter fuel allowance. And what really hurts, you see, is they took away the winter fuel allowance but promised that energy bills would come down by £300 a year. Well, actually, as of the 1st of April, they're up on average by £281. So you've got a massively increased bill, and the winter fuel allowance has been taken away. That really has upset.
Although it's warmer.
Yeah, sure, but it has. But it still has upset a lot of people. But the big one, and this is the really big one that I'm seeing, working people, people who have alarms, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go off and work hard on building sites or whatever they do, and the kind of reaction I get is we're paying more and more blooming tax, and it feels like we're paying it for people who cross the channel in boats, for people who choose not to work, a deep sense of resentment. And I think Labour's connection, remember the old phrase working class? Labour's connection with the working class is the weakest now I think it's ever been.
But what can you do? You've only got 4 MPs in Parliament. How would a 5th do? You're barely a pimple on the size of Parliament.
Oh, it makes no difference in Parliament at all. I mean, you know, you've got to be... It doesn't matter what your national vote share is, doesn't matter where you are, Parliament operates on the basis of the last election. We know that, we understand that.
So you're saying you're trying to create local champions like the Liberal Democrats have done?
Lib Dems are very good at it. In fact, there are many, many things the Lib Dems do that we need to model our party on. They are very, very good at the social side of politics. They're very, very good at having their events. They're very, very good at delivering leaflets, knocking on doors. Boy, we've come a long way since the general election, but we're not yet where the Lib Dems are.
But what policies would you do? Would you cut local services? Which policies would you focus on? Maybe potholes, bin collections, and what would you cut? Because that would make you unpopular. Because you're quite policy-light for a lot of our viewers.
Oh, I don't think so at all. In fact, actually, the truth is, as I've been going around the country, I'm talking about local policy way more than the leaders of the other parties.
Cutting local services, that's not popular.
Well, let me assure you, there are 2 things I've discovered. We put in 3,000 FOI requests ahead of these elections, right? So we've been preparing for this for a long, long time. I simply can't believe the money that's being spent on consultants. I can't believe the money that's being spent on agency workers. I can't believe areas like climate change or teeth brushing, or these are all areas where council tax money, payers' money is being spent that I don't think is the remit of a local council. So, 2 things we'd do. Number 1, get councils doing less. Focus on the primary goals of what a county council or unitary authority is for by not getting involved in all these other things. Secondly, send in the auditors. You know, let's find out. I mean, I'm sort of talking about a Doge for every county, if you like, using the American
Elon
example.
Musk's Doge.
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot of wasteful spending and a lot of complacency and a lot of people being paid a lot of money working for councils where debt's being racked up and getting worse.
So you would find out what are the key issues voters want, potholes being fixed, bins being emptied, and then ditch stuff that you don't think is non-core.
Ditch stuff that I don't think county council should be getting involved with at all. So slimmer government, leaner government, and while I'm at it, different culture. Work from home? Nah, not under us.
But if you get power at local level, that's a big deal for your party. You've never had it really before, making difficult, unpopular choices.
Well, I mean, there is some truth in that, but we're ready for it.
Would you do local deals with the Tories to run local services?
Well, you're all obsessed with this.
Well, because it happens. That's the deal.
This is the Westminster obsession. I mean, look, we do a deal with independents or whoever. All I can say is, to do a deal with anybody, we would demand very tough terms. And those tough terms would be, as I've said already, big cuts in spending, cuts in staffing, and cuts in terms of the areas that council involves itself in. And if other parties are prepared to go in with us on that basis, then yeah, we'd be grown-ups.
And would local arrangements with Conservatives in councils be a model for maybe cooperation post-general election?
Absolutely not.
Coalition with the Tories? Or
the Tories won't exist for the time of the next election.
OK.
I mean, what you're going to see from the 2021 vote is a lot of old Conservative voters come to us, and a chunk go to the Lib Dems as well. I honestly, I know they've been here since 1832. I don't believe there'll be an electoral force at the next election.
Moving on to other issues today, Tony Blair has said that the current net zero push by the Labour government is doomed to fail. You're grinning for listeners.
I've been saying that 10 years. I mean, actually, net zero, this debate on net zero, is something Reform are leading the way on. Even the Conservatives have said, oh, well, we're not so sure about net zero now, although they've written it into law during the last couple of months.
Without a vote of Commons.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Blair, it's a very interesting move from Blair. Very, very interesting move. And, of course, he's right.
On Donald Trump, have you sent him a congratulatory note about his 100 days?
No, I haven't.
You haven't been in touch at all since he...
I said before, you've got a British government involved in trade negotiations. If I'm seen to be interfering from the sidelines, that would look terrible.
I sense, are you disengaging from Trump a bit? Is it that you've seen the support, the popularity of Mark Carney when he defined himself against Trump? And, of course, he's a bête noire for you in terms of politics. Is there ground to be gained now for reform and for you for disengaging with where Trump is?
Quite why Trump's come out with his 51st State of America stuff with Canada, I have no idea. I've always said that our interests with Trump are similar but not symmetrical. And I still believe this is a pro-British American president who wants to do a full trade deal with us, but I worry that Starmer's reset with the EU is going to make that impossible.
That's coming up next month. So are you disengaging from Trump?
No, I'm not disengaging. I'm not disengaging, but I cannot be seen to interfere. If the Labour Party ring me up and say, go and see him and try and help with the trade deal, I go and do it. But if I interfere now, I'll be called all the names under the sun.
Nigel Farage, we'll see you after voting on Friday. Thank you for joining us today on GB News.
So that interview was part of a series in the build-up to the local elections. GB News political editor Christopher Hope has spoken to Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer several times during the campaign, including on Monday. He's also spoken to Sir Ed Davey yesterday, and we will be airing an interview with Kemi Badenoch later at 7 o'clock. And just to remind you, the 15 candidates running in the Runcorn and Helsby by-election are as follows. Catherine Ann Blakelock, the English Democrats. Dan Clark, the Liberal Party, Chris Copeman, the Green Party, Paul Duffy, Liberal Democrats, Peter Ford, Workers' Party, Howling Lord Hope, the Monster Raving Looney Party, Sean Hulston, the Conservatives, Jason Phillips Hughes, Volt UK, Alan Mackay, Independent, Graham Harry Moore, English Constitution Party, Paul Andrew Murphy, the Social Democratic Party, Sarah Pochin, Reform, Karen Shaw, Labour, John Stevens, Rejoin EU, Michael Williams, Independent. Well, with me in the studio is GB News' political editor Christopher Hope, GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, and former MP Lloyd Russell Moyle. OK, Christopher Hope, I'm going to start with you. What did you make of that?
Fascinating talking to Nigel Farage on the eve of this election tomorrow and how he should be emerging as the big winner on Friday, we expect, judging by the polls. He's saying there how the winter fuel allowance is a big problem for Labour. Even though it's warm weather outside, people do think, why on earth did this government punish pensioners, all pensioners, so soon into their time in office? How was that really thought through? Plans for a Doge-style unit, that's a Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk type of operation, send in the experts and strip out non-core spending in councils. That's the first, I think, interesting idea of what he'll do with power, because so far he's been a campaigner against power. These elections could give him power, footholds across the country, and how he uses that is fascinating. And when you start making choices on spending, you lose support as well, and that's why that might cost him. Also, I think, interesting on the Tory party, he says it won't exist by the next election. Well, we'll wait and see on that. They've been written off enough times, notably back in 1997. We all remember that, off that Blair landslide. And also disengaging with Donald Trump. I do think we are hearing a different Nigel Farage since January. He hasn't spoken to Trump at all in the White House, or anyone in the White House, he tells us. He stands ready to help, if asked to, by Sir Keir Starmer. But again, criticising him there on the 51st state, this attempt to take over Canada by Trump. That's a mistake. He says we are similar but not symmetrical with our policies. Maybe he's reading the room on Trump. Trump is not popular in the UK, and he wants to be popular in the UK himself, Farage. So maybe he's doing things that way.
Lloyd, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it is clear that Nigel Farage realises that his party still has a long way to get organised. He was almost saying that he would like to be the Liberal Democrats, not in policy, but in organisation. That is an interesting ambition, because the Liberal Democrats are not organised enough to form a government, not organised enough to take down one of the big parties. So is he saying there that he sees himself, like the Liberal Democrats, maybe forming coalitions in the future and pushing the two big parties? He later on dismisses the Tories as a long-term electoral force, but he doesn't quite yet seem to have his sights set in being the replacement. He doesn't say that we will be the replacement of the Tories. He just says the Tories will be extinguished. So I thought that was quite interesting from him. Of course, he's talking about local issues. Isn't everyone? It's a bit like, you know, kind of everyone says they want to cut waste. Everyone says they're going to make the local council more efficient. No one goes into an election saying we're going to waste your money and we're going to tax you more. So I don't know. I feel like the policy stuff is a bit bread and butter. Everyone says it, and there's nothing at the moment on the local stuff that he's actually very different on. The national stuff, yes, but not on the local stuff.
But Nana, making that choice on what to spend money, what to cut, that is when you become unpopular, and that's where you may find it challenging as he goes forward.
Well, it depends if they take a local council or they're taking leadership of local council. And there's a few that are on our site, on their sites, but I suspect my team Labour will be fighting them back hard on a lot of them as well. If they do take leadership, then I suspect what you will find in those areas, their support will go down and not up, and that will be difficult for them to balance. How do they sell one message in County Durham or in other parts of the country compared to say a message that they'll be putting in the southwest? It'll be contradictory, and it will be just like the people accuse the Lib Dems of, and it's the problem the Lib Dems have in breaking forward to be a bigger party, because people say, you say one thing in one area and you say another thing in another area, and that's what happens when you become a third party with some councils.
I've been asking both Richard Tice, I think Nigel Farage, are you the Lib Dems in disguise? Because they are literally, when they're obviously back in nationalising a steel plant and then cutting taxes and then dealing with the NHS. So what are they? What is their policy? And they appear to be doing different things to appeal to different groups.
Nigel Nelson.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's absolutely right that the important thing for reform is to see if they can run anything. So if they take a council, we'll find out whether or not they really can run something. Bear in mind, they run absolutely nothing. We've been talking this afternoon about what they would do with a national emergency on small boats. No idea. So that's the problem reform have got. I was quite interested in those two things that Nigel Farage said about the other parties. About the Tories, they won't exist at the next election. As Lloyd says, let's see. There certainly isn't room for two right-wing parties in British politics. One of them has got to go with the Tories who've been there.
Both of them.
Or both of them. I think that probably I would look at reform as a bit like the SDP back in the 1980s. They came in with great fanfare. They were 25% in the polls, as Reform are now. 7 years later, they're gone. And they were swallowed up by the Lib Dems, who Nigel Farage was praising. Lib Dems are great when it comes down to local government. They really get down and do it. And equally, they managed to win 71 MPs at the general election. That's what they would have got had we had a proportional representation system in. So Nigel Farage wants to know how these guys managed to do that. And bear in mind, he's the new kid on the block, they're the old kids.
Well, they're quite clever, aren't they, at working out where they should put their energy when it comes to where they want to get the seats and the votes and things like that, which they've done very successfully. So, you know, how did you think that Nigel, because when you were there, to me he seemed very calm and very considered. It feels to me like he's changed.
I think I've seen Farage a lot on the road over my 20 years covering politics, UKIP and then Brexit Party, now Reform UK. He does get energised by campaigning. He looks healthy, he looks tan, because all MPs and campaigning are tan. They've got this outside tan. He's flying around a lot by air, and that's so he's getting everywhere quickly, and that's how we can do these big rallies. He's doing one, I think, tonight. I think, yeah, he's energised, he's excited, and he's got a massive weekend ahead of him. He'll be all over GBNews and other channels on Friday, I think, and see how it plays out. You mentioned there, Nigel Nelson, he does have a policy on small boats. It's towing them back.
I know, which we know is ridiculous.
Well, they say you can do it under some law of the sea, but the point is, this party has got to start justifying its language, and you are right to say, what is your actual policy on this? Because saying we'll take, as I've heard Zia Youssef say at a conference in January, we'll just not turn them back, but remove these boats and put them back in French waters, that's not going to work, or shouldn't work under the current laws.
It is completely impractical, but there's an awful lot. If you read the Reform Charter, you run through a load of things there. First of all, they've done most of the things Labour has.
But what are Labour's policies? What Where are they standing with things?
Well, I mean, if you take the local elections, everything varies between different areas. So you can't really sort of talk about Labour's overall policies beyond what you see in national government. One of the key things at the moment is the reform of local government, where unitary authorities will start taking over. One of the problems we've got now is that you have, say, county councils and district councils, and what people don't know, the council taxpayer, is who does what. One of the benefits if reform comes along, reform of the councils, not reform the party, is you will get these unitaries which will take over everything.
But what about deals? Because he talked about doing deals with different parties. Would the Labour Party consider doing a deal with?
No, I mean, I don't think that happens. What does happen at local level is that, depending where you are, if you've got a council with no overall control, the councillors will get together to try and sort out how they can make that council work. So in that sense, you would get deals between parties with really disparate political views.
I mean, UKIP made deals with independents and Tories in previous
That's right, exactly. There's an example.
So this idea that they wouldn't make a deal is, I'm afraid, for the birds. In local councils, where it's a hung council, which probably about a third of councils on and off are hung, which means that there's not an overall majority, what happens is the biggest party, whichever that is, can get together with the other smaller parties and try and do a deal. Because in councils, what happens is once you appoint the leader, all the power goes to the leader of that council, and basically the rest of the council does a bit of scrutiny and rubber stamping, but they do a budget once a year, but they do sweet nothing for the rest of the time, and the leader appoints the cabinet. So the deal will be, put our people in your cabinet, make our people the head of sports and recreation, make our people the head of roads and potholes, and there you'll be able to start to see whether they deliver. Do they deliver on sorting out potholes, or do they not, because all the money's spent on adult social care, and that's a statutory duty that if they don't do, they get arrested, whereas if they don't fill the pothole in, nobody gets arrested.
All right, well, listen, we're going to quickly cross back to the White House as Elon Musk has been speaking at Donald Trump's cabinet meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, congratulations on this truly historic first 100 days of your administration, really only made possible by your focused leadership on delivering the mandate the American people gave you. You've empowered all of us to deliver that mandate. And I'm grateful to have the privilege of leading the intelligence community towards ending the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community that's gone on for far too long, and building out what is truly a lean and agile and effective intelligence community that is helping you deliver that promise to the American people of safety, security, and freedom. So, Mr. President, I'd like to highlight just 3 of the areas where we are helping to support your leadership and your work in making America safe again and bringing about these changes. First of all...
All right, Elon Musk was speaking moments ago. We literally just missed him, but we'll try and get back to that. But Chris, he was talking about Doge, and you mentioned that kind of style with when you're speaking
Yes,
to...
Doge stands for the Department of Government Efficiency. It's what Elon Musk has brought into his period in the Trump administration, and that's what Farage is saying. He says his red lines on these deals, Lloyd, you were mentioning there, are unless you agree to cut spending in these areas, he would say it would be DEI or consultant spending and the rest, then I won't do a deal, I won't allow reform to do a deal locally with a party that won't agree to the same kind of agenda. Is that even realistic?
It's not realistic.
It's not practical, is it?
Because the problem is, probably about 2/3 of council spending is mandated by law,
let's go back. Actually,
and they don't get a choice.
I think we might have got Elon Musk. Let's go quickly back.
Elon, I love the double hat, by the way. He's the only one that can do that. Get away with it.
Well, Mr. President, you know, they say I wear a lot of hats. It's true. Even my hat has a hat. You know, the American people voted for secure borders, safe cities, and sensible spending. And that's what they've gotten. A tremendous amount has been accomplished in the first 100 days. As everyone has said, it's more than has been accomplished in any administration before, ever, period. This portends very well for what will happen for the rest of the administration. I think this could be the greatest administration since the founding of the country.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help, too. You know, you really have sacrificed a lot. Been treated very unfairly.
Well, they do like to burn my cars, which is not great. You know, it could be better.
But you have been treated unfairly, but the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you know, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his. You've done an incredible job. $150 billion. Think of that.
Yeah. 160 now.
Yeah, 160. They said, oh, it could have been more. And a lot of stuff is being worked on. That number could be doubled and even tripled. A lot of things are being worked on that we don't count yet because it's not quite there. But you've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it very much, Elon. You know,
Thank you. And it's also an honor to work with your incredible cabinet. I just like to say thank you, everyone, for it's great to work with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Kelsey?
So that was Donald Trump congratulating Elon Musk on his hard work. And it's interesting because he actually just said that you're welcome back any time, which did sound like he may well be going somewhere. But of course, it's the Doge thing now. Apparently he's done quite a lot of efficiency, which is what Nigel was talking about, and doing something similar.
Yeah, he said that stay as long as you want, didn't he?
Well,
but is Doge possible in the UK? We do have the NAO, the National Audit Office. We used to have the Audit Commission for councils. That was wrapped up by the Tory government, from memory. I just wonder whether he's trying to channel a bit of that, isn't he, Lord Rossmoyle? And is that possible at local level? And is that a red line which means anything at all?
I think you can do it at a national level. Clearly, that's a political choice in our system. Parliament is sovereign. They can get rid of anybody or create anybody that they want to. At the local level, however, it's very difficult. The vast majority of local spending is mandated by law, and that means if the councils don't spend it, the councillors themselves can be sent to prison. So all of the adult social care stuff, all of the school stuff, all of that budget. So it kind of means you are then playing around parks and benches, and so I'm not sure there's much you can do.
All right, Lord Rossmoyle, you'll be back, won't you, later today? Christopher Hope and also Nigel Nelson, thank you very much. Thank you to you. Up next, it is the Queen of Primetime. It is, of course, Michelle Juby with Jubes & Co.
Thank you very much for that, Nana. I've got to say, I did enjoy watching Elon Musk there. I know it's not always a popular view, but I do actually quite like him. I'll tell you who else I like. Aaron Bastani and Peter Hitchens, they are on my programme tonight, and we have a lot to discuss. UK, Yemen airstrikes without a parliamentary vote. I thought Keir Starmer promised that was what was going to happen. Also, I want to talk to you about fly tipping, housing, and a whole lot more. I'll see you at 6.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News on this beautiful sunny day across the UK. And it's going to continue to feel hot during the rest of the day. Showers, though, are likely to turn up across the far north of the country. Northern and northwest Scotland already seeing the cloud build. Odd shower here for the rest of the afternoon, but some more prolonged showery rain pushing into the Outer Hebrides and the Northern Isles by evening. Ahead of that, we keep the clear skies and keep the warmth as well. And in some places, it will be a remarkably warm night. Temperatures dipping to the mid-teens in some urban areas and possibly even higher than that across parts of coastal northwest Wales. There will be some colder spots first thing, particularly sheltered parts of central England into northern England, but there will be also some very mild areas overnight. Scotland and Northern Ireland, however, a very different start to the day on the first day of May, with a lot more cloud, areas of showery rain moving south and some heavy downpours developing in places. England and Wales, meanwhile, once again, sunny skies and temperatures very quickly rising through the morning. It's going to be the hottest day of the week, and temperatures are expected to widely reach the mid to high 20s. but a very different story for Scotland and Northern Ireland as this area of cloud and showers pushes south. Could be a thunderstorm for the far south of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland and Northern England. Also could be a thunderstorm developing across central parts of England and Wales as the heat builds here, highs of 29 Celsius expected. But behind the weather front across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it's going to feel much cooler compared with recent days. And that air is filtering its way southwards, albeit slowly, so it's another very warm day in the south and southeast on Friday before temperatures get back towards average for Saturday, Sunday and Bank Holiday Monday, albeit with still some fine weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M60 at Junction 10 in Trafford, a collision has closed 2 lanes. Normal traffic is expected by 6:30. In Solihull, M42 northbound congestion between junctions 4 and 5 causes a 10-minute delay, clearing by 6:30. The A14 westbound between Junction 50 Stowmarket East and Junction 49 Stowmarket West in Suffolk is closed due to a collision. Normal traffic is expected by 8:30. On the A27 westbound between the A277 and junction with A23 in Brighton, 30-minute delays are reported, resolving by 7:30. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news